The secret place of Yushu Academy is a place surrounded by mountains. The interior is complex, full of plains, rivers, monsters, and strange things. In the midst of it all, there is a forbidden valley, invisible due to the darkness, and the surrounding terrain is lifeless. The young man told his charges that it was a good place and ordered them to drop the sack into the gorge. As the wards carried the sack, the man inside shouted for them to let him out. Skinny asked what they were doing, since the man inside was still alive, and if anyone found out about it, they would become criminals and be jailed. Because of what they heard, their master asked if he thought they were only doing it for fun. He then kicked the bag and shouted that this was his punishment, as no one was allowed to interfere in his private affairs. The body fell, hitting the ledges and causing the person inside to suffer in pain. Clenching his teeth in pain, he vowed that if he could get out of here, he would avenge his abusers at all costs. Suddenly, his fall ended with him hitting a huge bone. He was enraged that he was going to die like that and started cursing the whole thing. Suddenly, the ancient creature's bones began to absorb the blood that had gotten on them and absorb the purple mist surrounding it. Then a golden light lit up in the eye sockets of his skull. After millions of years, he would finally manage to free himself. The creature promised the young man who had drunk his blood that it would help him destroy the heavens. And for that, the creature began to destroy its bones, giving the young man all its energy. Opening his eyes, Tianling wondered where he was and if he was dead. Suddenly, a huge golden dragon appeared in front of him and asked Tianling if he was awake. Tianling asked the dragon who the dragon was and why he saved him. He replied that he was a super strong dragon system, and his name was Shenlong. The system is the name given to creatures similar to him. Shenlong suggested that Tianling just call him father, then added that he wanted to exploit him. Tianling asked Shenlong in what sense he wanted to exploit him, but the dragon asked him not to ask any more questions, because in the future, Tianling would still realize how important the system was, and for that sake he would bring Tianling back to life and give him the resurrection gifts. Waking up, Tianling wondered what had just happened, as he suddenly noticed something strange and discovered that all of his meridians were completely healed. Just as suddenly, a small flying creature appeared behind Tianlin and explained that this was his first gift, the path of spiritual chaos. Tianling asked the creature if it was the dragon he had recently seen, to which the creature replied that it was his second gift, the dragon of the 5 elements. After which, the dragon snapped its fingers and a huge egg fell beside Tianlin. The dragon explained that this was the path of spiritual chaos, being the best and rarest path in the world. It contained everything, and since Tianling had obtained the dragon of the 5 elements, the path of his soul would become the same. Tianling decided to touch the egg, but unfortunately for him it was too hot, which made him scream, and the dragon asked him not to panic as it was the way of spiritual fire. After that, he said that the resurrection stage was over, which meant it was time for the first mission. The dragon took out a scroll and told that the missions are divided into 4 levels: A, B, C, D. A is the most difficult, while D is the easiest. With all these missions, you have to be careful as any mistake can lead to the end of the order. Tianling asked what the man meant by the end of the order. Then he looked at his first mission, which is a level D mission, the purpose of which is to help the first person to ask for help from all his powers. The reward for completing it is hatching a fire egg. Tianling admitted that, judging from the description, this mission will be very easy for him. Only he doesn't know how to get out of this valley. Besides, there are many gases here that could cause him to die. The dragon asked Tianlin not to worry about it, as he has a dragon system that he can get help from at any time. After which, the dragon borrowed the wind to send Tianling high towards the clouds. But as soon as Tianling and the egg started to fall, the dragon picked up the egg and said that it would take care of it. Immediately after which, Tianling fell down, reducing his speed, hitting the branches of the trees. Getting to his feet, Tianling reprimanded the dragon for not even letting him prepare for this. Then he began to make his way through the bushes, thinking about what kind of person he might meet in such a beautiful place. As he looked behind the bushes, he realized that he was a lucky man, as he was able to catch a glimpse of the beauty in the lake. Tianlin never expected that the first person he would see would be a beautiful woman. But even though she was beautiful, she couldn't compare to his little sister from training. Teacher had promised that she would marry Tianlin as soon as he turned 16. Remembering no one, Tianling vowed that he would not let anyone steal his girl. He had already realized that the man who had thrown him into the gorge wanted to harm his sister. So Tianling promised that he would crush his head with his own hands if he dared to approach her. Just as suddenly, the girl sensed someone's presence and ordered the coward to show himself now. Tianling was shocked at the thought of being discovered so easily after all. He hadn't even moved. Suddenly, a huge bear jumped out from behind the bush where Tianling was hiding. The girl was amazed that this place harbored such monsters, which meant that her father was right in saying that the secret place of Yushu Academy was not so simple. The girl started to run away from the bear. It's not hard for her to defeat him, but she's naked now, and it will be bad if someone sees her like that. She reached the shore and reached for her clothes with the jade pendant her mother had left her. But the bear was quicker and in the next instant destroyed the stone with his clothes, from which the jade pendant flew off and shattered against the stone. The bear growled loudly before finishing the girl off. Just as suddenly, Tianling jumped out of nowhere and immediately hit the bear on the head. Afterward, he asked the girl if she was okay, but all she could say was that her column had been destroyed. Suddenly, another bear, many times larger than the previous one, jumped out from behind the trees. Immediately after, the bear tried to trample the girl, but Tianling saved her by stopping her paw. Tianling shouted to the girl to stop walking towards the danger. He would have saved her himself, but it would be too impolite to touch a naked girl. The dragon told Tianlin that he couldn't leave it like that since that was the purpose of the mission, which made Tianlin chuckle, because in this rescue mission there was no way around physical contact. While Tianling giggled to himself, the bear raised its paw and was about to attack the girl again. But at the last moment, Tianling grabbed the girl and jumped away from the bear together. The girl said that she wanted her pendant, which made Tianling wonder if she was crazy to put her pendant above her life. He wondered how expensive the pendant might be. The dragon flew up to Tianlin and called him a fool, after all. The task of helping the first person is not only to save a life. Hearing this, Tianling assumed that the main purpose of his mission was to retrieve the pendant, and so he asked the girl to wait for him away from danger while he returned for her pendant. Tianling ordered the bear to get lost and hit the bear with fire, causing the bear to fall on its back, after which he looked at the jade pendant and saw that it had been destroyed. Oh, and besides, that's not the worst news, because these bears are bigger than the ones he's seen before, and his attacks don't work on them. The bears, angry at being interrupted, pounced on Tianlin, but at the same moment the dragon threw a fire egg at Tianling. Tianling caught the egg, after which a golden light began to emanate from it, dazzling the bears. The bears felt threatened by the egg, so they hurried away from the scene of the battle. Tianling felt uneasy at the thought of what might hatch from this egg, for the bears were frightened when they barely saw his egg. The dragon picked up the egg and said that he would take care of it, after which he took out a pendant and offered to complete Tianling's first mission. Tianling approached the girl and asked how she was feeling. The girl remained silent, staring at Tianlin. Suddenly she blushed and asked him if he'd had enough, then ordered him to get her some clothes. Tianling apologized for his behavior, after which he gave her his clothes. After getting dressed, the girl ordered Tianling to give her jade pendant, after which she would remain indebted to him, and if he ever got into trouble, she would try to help. Tianling held out the pendant and apologized for the fact that it was broken. The girl put the pendant to her breast and sobbed. She said that it was the only thing left by her mother. The girl then began to blame herself, for she had wanted to swim here, and it was only through her stupidity that the pendant had been destroyed. Tianling thought about how sad it was to lose his mother's only inheritance. Suddenly, the dragon behind his back said that the mission wasn't over yet, as Tianling had to fix the pendant. Tianling was afraid that the girl might see the dragon and ordered him to hide now before he was seen. The dragon told Tianling that he had nothing to worry about, after all. Only Tianling could see him. But as for the mission, all Tianling needs to do is spill some of his blood on the pendant. Tianling returned to the girl and asked her to give him the pendant so he could try to fix it, to which she replied that there was nothing he could do about it, because there was no way to repair a broken jade pendant. Tianling dripped his blood onto the pendant, after which it began to recover, while the girl watched it all in shock. Tianling asked the girl not to be sad anymore, as the pendant was now repaired, after which the girl thanked him for it. Suddenly, Tianling felt fatigue come over him and fell off his feet. The girl caught Tianling and asked how he was feeling, and if it was because he had lost too much blood, to which Tianling replied that he was fine, he was just tired while fighting the bears. The girl placed Tianling on the stone and thought about the fact that to repair the pendant, he used pure blood energy, which probably consumed too much energy, and all this considering he's just a stranger risking his life to help her. She said there's no one willing to risk their life but her mother. Tianling said that it didn't matter, because as long as she was satisfied, then everything was fine. At this moment, he was only thinking about what was inside that egg. The girl began to think about what she should do to repay his kindness, for he was willing to risk his life for her. The girl told Tianling that he had been good to her and therefore she would be good to him as well. after which she kissed him. Finished with the kiss, she said she knew about him peeking while she was bathing, but she wasn't mad at him. After all, she couldn't blame the man who had risked his life for her. Suddenly, an old man with a shining bald head appeared beside Tianling and the girl and asked the madam to return as it was already quite late. The girl immediately realized how she looked from the outside, which made her blush and flung Tianling away, and told Uncle Chen that she would come back right away. Tianlin wondered why she pushed him away when she saw that old man and whether she would deny knowing him. Afterward, he touched his lips and thought about how the feeling of the kiss was like the pure taste of honey. Meanwhile, the girl had changed into her old clothes, after which she said it was getting late, and if it was up to her, she would stay with him until morning, but now only next time. The girl said goodbye and asked that Tianling not forget her name, Zhou He Yang, which Tianling immediately gave her a beautiful name. As soon as Zhou He left, Tianling slapped his face, for he had forgotten to tell her his name. Old Man Chen apologized to Zhou He, because if he didn't intervene, he was afraid that he might disturb her. Besides, he knows that her strength would be enough to deal with those monsters. Zhou He smiled and told her uncle that everything was fine. As she suddenly remembered how she had just been rescued and covered her face that was drenched in blush, she still wished she could thank him for it. Tianling picked up his clothes and smiled because of the remaining scent of Zhou He. He thought this scent was beautiful. Just as suddenly he noticed something solid in his clothes and found a vial inside. Dragon glanced at the vial and assumed that Zhou He had left him some medical pills to restore his blood energy. Tianling was surprised to hear this. After all, these are very rare pills, and even rich people have to shell out a lot of money for them. He asked why she decided to keep them, and the dragon called him a fool and explained that Zhou He left them because she saw that he had repaired the pendant using blood energy. Hearing this, Tianling shrieked as he didn't think about using blood energy, after all. It was a dangerous spiritual path technique. The dragon agreed with what he said and asked if Tianling regretted what he had done. Tianling couldn't say he was sorry after remembering the recent kiss and opened the vial. Afterward, he said he had no regrets and took a sip of the pills. Just as suddenly, a mission scroll unfolded beside Tianlin, and the dragon system said that he had safely completed the first mission, and the reward for the mission was the ability to nurture a fire egg using the earth mark. Holding out his hands, Tianling thought about the fact that this thing looked pretty hot. The dragon brought the egg to Tianling and told Tianling to gather his spiritual energy in a sign and threw it at the egg. Tianling agreed, and putting a sign on the egg, asked what was inside. Suddenly, cracks began to spread across the egg, and the dragon said it was going. As suddenly, the contents burst out of the egg and turned into dragon flames that rushed towards the clouds. Tianling thought it was a magic weapon as the flame suddenly headed towards him, and Tianling stretched out his hands to get its power. Suddenly, the flames turned into a girl who landed in Tianling's arms. Immediately after that, she fell asleep resting on his lap, and Tianling asked the dragon how could a person hatch from an egg, to which the latter replied that it was a flame dragon, one of the 5 elemental dragons. The 5 elements dragon asked him not to underestimate this girl just because of her appearance, because if he saw her true form, he would look no stronger than a child against her. If Tianling became stronger, she would be able to exceed the limit of her strength and show her true essence in the future. The only problem was that she had to be subdued first. First impression is very important in this matter, and it looks like Tianling suggested that it was like taming a cat, to which the dragon awkwardly replied that it was almost like that. As the girl suddenly opened her eyes, causing the dragon of the 5 elements to shriek, that cat, or rather Tianling's dragon, woke up. Immediately after which, that one quickly jumped away from Tianlin and jumped up a tree, then asked who he was. Tianling greeted the girl and told her his name before asking her what her name was. But the girl refused to tell him her name, whereupon Tianling said that he would call her Mei Mei. The girl, clearly unhappy with the name given to her, breathed fire on Tianling, and the 5-element dragon asked her not to anger her if he didn't want to be roasted. Just as suddenly, the girl stopped breathing fire on Tianling. After all, he offered her a bun. Tianling said that was all he had with him. He didn't bring any food with him since he came to the secret area unprepared. In the next instant, the girl snatched the bun at a speed imperceptible to the eye and disappeared behind Tianlin's back. Turning around, Tianling saw that Xiaofeng clearly liked the bun and began to watch her eat with amusement. After finishing, Xiaofeng put her finger to her lips and thanked Tianling for the bun, which made Tianling fall in love with her cuteness and wanted to hug her. But the dragon of the 5 elements asked Tianling to calm down, as she could turn him into ashes, and advised him to think about how he would get out of here. After which, Tianling drew a map and told them that this was the only way they could cross this area, and since they wanted to leave, they needed to follow the specified path. The only problem with the top is that the people who dumped it in the gorge might be there too. Tianling, along with the dragons, were sneaking around on tiptoe so as not to make a sound. After a while, Tianling saw the exit ahead and said that although the gate looked safe, but once they crossed the gate, they would immediately be spotted by the guards. Tianling explained that if the guards found out that they were in a restricted area, then they would immediately attack them. As he suddenly noticed that Xiaofeng and the dragon were hardly listening to him, and asked them to be at least a little concerned about their situation, Xiaofeng looked at the rabbit sharing food with her, and that the dragon said that he didn't see any guards nearby. After that, the dragon asked how Tianlin managed to get into the forbidden area and fell into the gorge. Tianling said that his spiritual energy flows were destroyed. Then a man said that there was a flower in the forbidden area that could heal spiritual energy flows. After hearing this, Tianling decided not to give up and sneak in. After wandering around the Forbidden Valley for a while, he found the flower he needed. But as soon as he plucked the flower, he fell into the trap, whereupon he lost consciousness. The dragon explained that Tianlin had been tricked and asked who, told him about the flowers. Meanwhile, the goat in the bushes stared in shock as Xiaofeng ate the hare. Tianlin explained that he didn't care who it was, as he only wished to restore the flow of spiritual energy. At the same moment, a huge clawed paw appeared above Tianlin's back. The dragon shouted for Tianlin to dodge, and Xiaofeng spat out a rabbit out of surprise. Immediately after that, Tianling picked up Xiaofeng and started to dodge the bear's attacks, during which he suggested that the bears had come to them for revenge, to which the dragon replied that the bears were just hungry, and Tianling had come to this place just on the day of the hunt. While the dragon of the 5 elements was telling Tianling about the bears, one of them managed to get close to Tianling. Immediately after, the bear attacked the victims, causing the dragon to panic as Tianling and Xiaofeng were crushed. But once the smoke cleared, the dragon saw that the guys were still alive. But Tianling was holding on from his last strength. The bears were already starting to annoy him. Mamie told Tianling that he had just saved her life. The bear retracted his paw, after which both bears attacked with more force, as Xiaofeng suddenly hugged Tianling, causing flames to surround them. After which, Xiaofeng wrapped a dragon around Tianling's body and ordered him to let his strength awaken. The older bear started to run away, frightened by Tianling's surging strength, and shouted to the younger bear not to stand still and run away with him. To which the younger bear replied that it was already hard for them to hunt, and there was only one person in front of them. Suddenly, Tianling appeared in their path and asked if they wanted to escape, after which Tianling destroyed the bears, unleashing the full power of fire. Immediately after that, Tianling lost consciousness and started falling down, but Xiaofeng arrived and managed to save him in time. The 5-element dragon flew up to Xiaofeng and asked where she was taking him, to which Xiaofeng replied that she was carrying him to the river, making the dragon feel uneasy. And he explained to her that she shouldn't do that, because Tianling was not only exhausted, but also unconscious, and if she launched him into the water now, he would just drown. Xiaofeng was startled by what she heard and asked what she should do then, to which the dragon replied that she just needed to take him somewhere warm and safe. After thinking a bit about a warm and safe place, Xiaofeng came up with an idea. After a while, Tianling realized that he had lost consciousness and wanted to know what had happened, after which he stood up and said that he felt tired. At the same moment, Xiaofeng was humming contentedly beside him. Suddenly, Xiaofeng exhaled a flame at Tianling, causing him to finally wake up. And after getting a little burned, he started yelling at her for it. He asked who told her to do it and if she wanted to fry him, and also asked why she put an apple in his mouth, to which Xiaofeng defensively replied that the fat dragon ordered her to do it. The angry Tianling clenched his fist and turned toward the laughing dragon. After receiving a lesson for his words, the dragon admitted that he hadn't said anything like that to her, and in fact, Xiaofeng had just misunderstood everything, and so he suggested forgetting about the incident. But Tianling only hummed, not intending to accept what had happened, and a silence hung in the air. After that, he began to think about how they could get out. The change of guards would last only a few seconds, with which they would be able to escape from here. But the sun would soon rise, and this plan could only be executed with the onset of darkness. After which, Tianling ominously grabbed the dragon and asked about how he managed to defeat the bears, since he had never seen such strength before. The dragon explained that it was all because Tianling and Xiaofeng were 100% emotionally compatible, through which he was able to unleash the dragon's power. He then explained that they should not continue to use the technique because if they could not defeat the opponent with it, they would simply die due to the complexity of the technique and the strain on their bodies. Tianling said he had figured out how they could get out of here and pulled out a rescue mantra, The Yushu Academy building is a palace surrounded by dozens of miles of mountainous terrain. The entire academy has tens of thousands of students. But this incredibly vast school is considered the weakest, all because Chung asked his mentees not to worry, because the strength of the academy is the strength of its master and students. The master is retiring, and he will need a successful student like Cheng to increase the power of the academy. The fat man agreed that Brother Chung was strong and invincible, but asked him not to forget about the missing student, because he was famous throughout the academy, and probably the master would want to find him. Chung slapped the fatty's cheek and called him a fool, because that guy was dead and his bones had shattered, making it useless to search for him. Just as suddenly, a blue circle of salvation mantra appeared beside them, and within the circle was Tianling. Tianling realized that things were bad, and it was all because he couldn't control the location of movement when he used the escape mantra. Chung stared at Tianlin in shock, and the underlings ran away shouting about the ghost. Tianling thought it was strange, after all. These guys should have asked how he got here instead of running away, thinking he was a ghost. Chung complained at Tianling for making another joke, and advised him to stop having fun and to focus on training. Just as suddenly, Tianling remembered the voices of those who had dropped him in the gorge, and realized that the voices of the three were converging with them. Hiding his anger, Tianling knocked Chung's hand away and thanked him for his advice. After finding out who was behind everything, Tianling was about to make Chung suffer. Chung asked how Tianling only dared to hit his hand, after which he poked Tianlin with his finger and asked if he still thought he was a genius. After all he sees in front of him is a useless scumbag. Tianling raised a stone to defend himself from Chung's next poke, and said that he was always looking down on him, after which he offered Chung a duel to the death. From what he heard, Chung's veins swelled with anger, and he asked if Tianling thought that he would be able to defeat him. Tianling said that in 3 days, there would be a duel, in which the winner would not be responsible for the defeat and death of the opponent. The angry Chung couldn't help but accept the challenge, and told Tianling that he had asked to die himself. Just as suddenly someone came to the commotion and asked what these two were doing here. It was the master's daughter Xiaolu, who Tianling liked. Chung stood in front of Tianling and told Xiaolu that she had come just in time, as this boy wanted to fight to the death on their wedding day, so she should come and personally see Tianling die. Tianling asked why Chung was talking about his wedding. After all, Xiaolu can't marry such an unworthy man. Xiaolu ordered Tianling to shut up. Then she hugged Chung and asked Tianling not to annoy Chung anymore, as she was content to be married to him. Besides, her marriage with Chung had been made known to the entire academy. She reminded Tianlin that he was absent yesterday when her father was announcing the wedding. Tianling remembered that he couldn't come yesterday since he was thrown in the forbidden area, and realized that something was wrong, after all. The master couldn't just agree to the wedding so easily. Tianling approached Xiaolu and asked if she was joking. After all, there was no way master could marry her off to a scoundrel like Chung. Xiaolu slapped Tianlin for coming closer. Afterwards, she said that the master had always wanted them to get married. Tianling assumed that Chung was behind all of this. Otherwise, how could little sister even like someone like Chung? He then promised Chung that he would show his true face to the entire academy, so that everyone could see what he was really like. Chung advised Tianlin to keep his mouth shut until he had some evidence. Otherwise, he promised that he would cut out Tianling's tongue before he could utter a single word. Tianling said that they would still see who would come out victorious and was about to leave when Xiaolu suddenly asked him to wait. After which, Xiaolu smirked and reminded Tianling that 3 years ago, his meridians were damaged, causing him to become useless. Hence, she thought that Tianling's family would visit him in 3 days. I mean, somebody's got to take his dead body. Tianling was angered by Xiaolu's words and roared that she was his enemy from now on. Xiaolu advised Chung not to feel sorry for Tianling. Otherwise, Tianling would strike him and everyone around him would be upset. Chung then asked her not to worry about it, because without his meridians, Tianling was just trash, and they didn't need to worry about such things. After returning home, Tianling decided that since his sister was happy with what was happening, it was his duty to show his strength to the master and the others. Suddenly, the dragon came back to him, and he came back with good news because Tianling had a new mission. This is a level D mission to get the underwear from the girl he recently rescued. The reward for the quest is a paper upgrade amulet and a book of techniques for the fire dragon, one of the dragons of the 5 elements. Tianling snapped back, saying that he had more important things to do and that this was not the time for such boring tasks. After all, he had to improve his meridians to fight a bastard in 3 days. The dragon explained that Tianling could train at any time, but he couldn't complete the task at any time because he only had 2 hours to complete the task. If he didn't complete the task, he would be finished. and then he won't have a chance to get revenge or anything. Tianling admitted that he didn't know where that girl was now, and asked how he would find her. The dragon said it was easy and snapped his fingers. After all, that girl's currently in the palace of Yushu Academy. Tianling showed the dragon his middle finger and asked why he hadn't said this before. The dragon said that they had no time to talk and started pushing Tianling towards the exit of the house, during which Tianling asked where the dragon girl was now, to which the dragon replied that he had left her in a safe place and asked him not to worry about it. The guest room of the palace. Tianling complained to the dragon about the stupidity of the task and asked who he was to steal underwear from Zhou Yang. The dragon offered to start by looking at the room inside and punched a peeking hole, which made Tianling uncomfortable, and asked if the dragon was going to peek at her. The dragon asked why Tianling didn't want to peek, after all. There was a beautiful girl with a lovely body inside. Tianling couldn't resist and agreed to look inside, but the dragon must be silent. Zhou Yang said to herself that she had arrived at the academy last night, and she had stayed up all night without anyone knowing, because of which she thought that the master didn't care about anything, after which she started to undress. Tianling bounced off the door and told the dragon that he couldn't watch her undress, and the dragon asked if Tianling had outlined a target, after which he grabbed Tianling's nose and said that an hour had already passed. Tianling had to agree, and anyway, he had already seen her body. Therefore, he should focus on the task at hand and not be shy. Looking out the window again, Tianling couldn't see anything, from which he assumed that Zhou Yan had already fallen asleep. Just as suddenly, he saw an unknown man in black robes enter the room with a rare invisibility amulet in his hand. Tianling started to get angry at the stranger. He wanted to know what the stranger was going to do. The intruder pulled out a baggie from which smoke began to come out, after which he chuckled and said that his smoke put people to sleep for 3 days, and there was nothing she could do about it. Mesmerized by He Yan's beauty, he reached for her breasts, wanting to make He Yan his. Just as suddenly, someone grabbed him by the neck and ordered him to take his hands off the girl. The intruder apologized to Tianlin and said that he hadn't had time to do anything yet. Tianling called him a freak and tossed him aside. Afterward, he checked He Yan's condition, and seeing that she had fallen asleep, he assumed it was all because of the smoke. The intruder said that he didn't know why Tianling was here, after which he said that this wench was good and incomparable in her beauty in the Yushu Academy. And also, she was a virgin, and his smoke had put her to sleep for 3 days, making it impossible for her to escape from here. And since that was the case, he offered to share the girl with Tianlin. Tianling ordered the intruder to shut his mouth and threatened to tear the man's paws off if he saw him one more time. The intruder agreed to leave, immediately after which he took out a pouch, releasing some smoke towards Tianlin. Tianling lost the strength to stand on his feet, whereupon the man praised him for his resilience. After all, Tianling was the only one who managed to resist that smoke and stay awake. But even so, he lost the ability to move. He said that Tianling wouldn't be able to distract him for long while in this state, and while Tianling was paralyzed, he could enjoy the beauty on the bed. Afterward, he told He Yan that he was going to her and started to give out. Tianling's mind flashed with images of He Yan kissing him, which caused him to release all his strength to get up. He couldn't leave it like this. Suddenly, Tianlin was enveloped in flames, whereupon he managed to rise, and reaching for his rapist, ordered him out of his sight. Tianling grabbed the rapist by the neck and burned him to the ground, wanting to send him straight to hell. Sitting down beside the pile of ashes from the intruder, Tianling expressed his displeasure since the intruder had forced him to do so, whereupon he covered himself with a blush, remembering He Yan, and made plans to cover her up without looking. The dragon asked Tianling what he was up to and if he wanted to undress the girl. After that, he pointed at He Yan's underwear and said that it would be better if he took this. Tianling said that he was only going to cover for the girl. Suddenly, the dragon clawed at his head and told Tianling to stop pretending to be a goody two-shoes and take his panties right now. Tianling took the panties and went to the window. Then Dragon asked if Tianling was trying to pull all the girl's clothes off. Tianling asked the dragon to shut up if he didn't want to get kicked in the head. As soon as Tianling left, He Yan thought about the fact that he had saved her once again. She wondered what he was going to do with her panties, and if he was a pervert. Back home, Tianling was happy that he had finally completed the task, and most importantly, no one had noticed him, and everything had gone smoothly. This was followed by a message that the task was completed, and the dragon exhaled flames along with Tianling's rewards. Tianling caught the amulet with the book, after which the dragon said that they would be useful to Tianling in the future. Immediately after, he said that he would teach Tianlin how to use underwear, and threw the underwear on his head. The dragon snapped his fingers, whereupon the book began to dissolve into flames and absorbed into Tianlin's eyes. Tianling asked what was happening to him. To which the dragon replied that the fire dragon art connects with his meridians. Just as suddenly, Tianling began to rapidly submerge into the water, after which a huge fire dragon swam up to him. The dragon explained that this was Tianling's first dragon art and said to take it. Tianling asked if obtaining the fire dragon art was really so easy to obtain, to which the dragon disagreed, and asked him not to jump to conclusions without trying things out on his own skin, as Tianling suddenly felt lightness in his body and wondered if he could exceed the limits for training, whereupon he flew upwards. Tianling was satisfied with the result and reached for the dragon sphere. Just as suddenly, the sphere exploded, blinding Tianlin and making him feel extremely hot, after which the core turned into a fiery copy of Tianlin, causing him to not be able to help but ask the question, what was going on? Suddenly, the core attacked Tianlin, which he barely managed to dodge. The dragon shouted to Tianling to be more careful, because if he touched the flames, Tianling would instantly turn into ashes. Tianling ripped off the burning sleeve and said that he had already guessed that this flame was unusual. The only question was how long he needed to fight back for the art to be obtained. Tianling asked the dragon why the fire guy was hitting him at the last moment, and if that meant he was a skilled fighter. To which the dragon replied that it was, "This guy is a skilled fighter, and to defeat him, you have to hit back." Tianling thanked the dragon for the obvious advice and asked why the dragon had taken a vacation while he was busy. The dragon said, almost forgetting something, and raised his glasses and snapped his fingers, after which Xiaofeng appeared beside him and began to enjoy comfort together with the dragon while Tianling was in mortal danger. While Tianling was fighting the fiery version of himself, Xiaofeng suggested that he join them. Fiery Tianling took the opportunity and struck when Tianling was distracted, but Tianling managed to dodge. He wanted to know how the enemy managed to hide like this. In the end, Tianling realized that it was all just in his head, and he had to get the upper hand over it. He decided that since his opponent was burning with fire, he needed to stop the flames, whereupon Tianling grabbed the fire blades that almost cut him. Suddenly he realized that this flame didn't burn at all. After that, the flames of the core began to soak into his hands. The dragon admitted that he hadn't expected that Tianling would be able to handle it so quickly. He was getting stronger by the hour, not by the day. Tianling felt the heat spreading through his body, and so he asked the dragon what was happening to him. The dragon congratulated Tianlin for completing the first test and exhaled flames into Tianlin's hand. Just as suddenly, the dragonfire turned into a sword, catastrophic punishment. Tianlin thought about the test and asked if the dragon wanted him to be able to overpower that family. The dragon asked if they were Tianling's family, after which the dragon explained that the first martial art evaluated courage, and if Tianling didn't have the manliness to even become strong, then he'd better go home and sell fried potatoes. The dragon said that in the next 3 days, Tianling would train and fight with a master of this art, and he had already found an opponent for Tianling. Xiaofeng questioningly pointed at herself, after which Xiaofeng returned her old clothes and offered to start, and the dragon said that she would be his opponent. Tianling said that he knew that she was a fire dragon, but she wanted to be his opponent. After which he looked down at the little girl, as suddenly Xiaofeng took on the guise of a fire dragon and looking down at Tianling from above, she proposed to start the fight. Tianling took out a fire blade and reluctantly offered to start practicing. Dragon dressed up as a girl to mock what visual creatures men are. Just as suddenly, Tianling landed straight into his chaise lounge, causing the dragon to spill a cocktail. Tianling was dissatisfied with the outcome of the last round, and told Xiaofeng to attack again. After a while, Tianlin found himself in the dragon's mouth, and the dragon of the 5 elements scoffed at Tianling being beaten. But still, he recognized that this flame was indeed ruthless. For the next few days, Tianling and Xiaofeng continued their ruthless training. Competition day. Chung announced to his siblings that they would all be here today as witnesses, and if he accidentally injures Tianling during the duel, he hopes that each of them will help him explain everything to the master. The guests agreed to witness the battle and started cheering for Chung. No one could understand how such a stinking asshole like Tianling dared to challenge Chung, and even began to speculate that Tianling had had enough of life. Xiaolu smiled and said about how she was completely confident that Tianling wouldn't even dare to come to fight. After all, it's all for nothing. His spiritual channels have been destroyed, and he has no choice but to hide somewhere. As a silhouette suddenly appeared behind the backs of the guests, Tianling offered to find out which one of them was ultimately trash. He said he had come to fight because he had made a promise. Chung praised Ling Tian for his bravery and asked him not to complain if he accidentally lost his arm. Tianling asked not to be intimidated after all. The two of them had already volunteered to duel to the death, and he didn't need Chung's feigned sympathy. To which Xiaolu replied that only someone who can't see the good in people is unworthy. So now Tianling would get what he deserved. Chung stopped Xiaolu and asked him to stop talking, for it was time for them to start the fight. After that, Chung and Tianlin entered the ring, and Chung promised that he would try not to beat Tianlin to a pulp. The winner would be the one who would stay in the ring the longest. Tianling thought about the fact that he and Du Chen were both students of the academy, and both practiced Dianxia Jin, except that Du Chen's ability level was much higher. It was because Tianling's spiritual channels had been destroyed, and the past few years had been wasted. The only way to win was by surprise. Du Chen said that he knew that after Tianling's spiritual channels were damaged, he was stuck at the third level without making any progress. And to be fair, he has something to say. Immediately after, Du Chen attacked Tianlin, shouting out that his Dianxia Jin had reached the 5th level. Tianlin managed to dodge Du Cheng's attack, but where he stood, the ground was destroyed. Du Chen then asked Tianling to show all he could and attacked again. Tianlin realized how viciously Du Chen had acted, for he was trying to take his life. Du Chen said that Tianling was just a lowlife, and now the day of his death had come. After which, Du Chen attacked Tianlin again, but the latter dodged. Tianlin shouted that Du Chen would be ruined by his arrogance and punched the one, but Du Chen managed to block the punch. Du Chen admitted that he was curious how Tianling would get out of it next time. Tianling decided that he had already hardened himself enough to endure this. His soul had suffered enough, and he should finish it as soon as possible. Tianling called for a catastrophic punishment. Du Chen asked if this technique belonged to Tianlin, and if he had learned it himself as a genius, or if he had simply stolen it. Tianling rushed towards Du Cheng and shouted that he had achieved this because of him. One of the spectators wondered if Du Cheng could handle it. Another remembered that Tianling's spirit channels had been destroyed, and a third shouted that Tianling was just a pretender. Unwilling to listen to them further, Xiaolu ordered everyone to shut up since this weakling wouldn't be able to harm Du Chen. Du Chen said that Tianling was naive if he thought he could win so easily, and dodgingly hit the one on the arm, from which Tianling lost control of it and dropped the fire sword. Du Chen agreed that the stronger the martial art, the better, but it was more important who used it. However, he had to admit that while avoiding attacks, Tianling had done a reasonable job of strengthening his waist and abdomen to move freely. Xiaolu started cheering for Du Chen and asked him to kill Tianling, and the girls next to her blushed at how tough Du Chen was. Tianling thought about the fact that he could kill Du Chen with a single strike, taking advantage of Du Chen's opening, except that he was too quick to react, and the worst part was that his right arm was completely numb. Du Chen told Tianlin that he didn't intend to play with him anymore, and was going to put an end to it, then approached him to attack. Tianling asked who Du Chen had him for, since he thought he would fight at the 5th stage like him. Immediately after that, Tianling called out a catastrophic punishment, stopping the blade at Du Chen's neck, and asked him not to forget that he was a genius. Everyone was amazed that Tianling had defeated Du Chen. Just as suddenly, something landed between Tianlin and Du Chen. The master asked the students why they thought they could fight to the death in a contest of brothers. The master complained to the underlings called his students. He wanted to know if they wanted to undermine his authority in front of the whole school. Du Chen pointed at Tianlin and said that the latter had challenged him to a deadly duel because he was dissatisfied with the engagement between him and Xiaolu. Master asked if it was true that Tianling was the one who challenged Du Cheng to a duel. Tianling admitted that it was his fault for not being able to contain his emotions, and was willing to accept his punishment for what had happened. But Tianling didn't say that after Xiaolu's action, he no longer wanted to have anything to do with her. Since Tianling's spiritual channels were destroyed, the master decided to marry his daughter to Du Cheng. Unexpectedly, but Tianling's lost spiritual channels were restored, and he was just now able to use martial arts against Du Cheng. If Tianlin's talent was revived, it would only be a matter of time before he was allowed into the temporary palace. Du Chen himself is older, and his potential has almost reached its limit, and he is unlikely to become much stronger. Tianling, on the other hand, has a good chance of becoming famous throughout the entire Middle Kingdom. Du Chen thought about the fact that Master was pondering about how he would punish Tianlin, and he hoped that the latter would get hurt a lot. Master said that since Tianling was so serious about his daughter that he was even willing to fight to the death for her, he made the decision to break the engagement between his daughter and Du Chen. Du Chen and Tianlin were astonished by what the master said. Tianling said, "That's not exactly what he wanted." Suddenly, the master ordered him to be silent and told him that he would only give away his daughter to the strongest student, after which he told me that the entrance exam for the inner school would be held in 3 months, and the one who passed the exam better would become his daughter's fiancé. Tianlin decided not to think about it anymore. After all, he still wanted to enter there. And if he wanted to become the strongest in the entire Middle Kingdom, then entering the inner school would be a logical step along the way. And after passing the exam, he could just give up the engagement. Duchen was furious, after all. It was only because of Tianling's displeasure that his engagement was thwarted. All this time, Zhou Hiyang was hiding behind the pillar. She was wondering if it was true that Tianlin liked the master's daughter so much. Uncle Chung advised Madam not to waste time on jealousy, and to see Master Lu as soon as possible. He Yan asked who was jealous, then added that she was not jealous. Master Lu told Du Chung that he could go, just as suddenly He Yan and Chung came over. As he left, Du Chen pondered over the identity of the guests. The girl clearly didn't look like a commoner. He even assumed that she was a representative of the 10 great schools of the Celestial Empire. Master Lu apologized for keeping the guests waiting. Zhou Hiyang assumed that Master Lu already knew the purpose of their visit, to which the latter replied that she thought rightly, and told him that they had already reported their interest. But even so, he should tell them that those remains are just a pile of bones, and there is no power circulating in them. It's just a lifeless skeleton of a monster. Also, he assumed that they would want to see for themselves. There's an order from on high. This is not an ordinary case, so a thorough examination of the remains is mandatory. Uncle Cheng asked Master Lu to accompany them to the remains. At the same time, Tianlin's room. Ever since Tianlin's body had acquired a fiery spiritual core, the cultivation process had noticeably accelerated, but he still felt that it was insufficient. In order to enter the inner school, Tianling needs to develop Dianxia energy to the 7th step. But right now, he was only at the 3rd step. The dragon tapped Tianlin's head, causing his tension scale to rise, and said that he was surprised that all the disciples were mastering Dianxia energy, because it was a serious technique. Suddenly, Xiaofeng ran up to Tianling and asked if he had anything to eat, causing Tianling's tension scale to reach its limit. And he asked the dragons not to disturb him, and told them that the Dianxia energy technique was taught in the D sub-school. Yuzhou School is divided into 4 sub-schools, A, B, C, and D. A and B are internal, while C and D are external. That said, Dianxia energy is inferior to the moon coolness technique taught in sub-school C. With moon coolness, one can absorb moonlight, thereby speeding up cultivation. The 5 elements dragon bit Tianlin and explained that the Dianxia technique was very ancient and often only passed down through inheritance. After which, he asked if there were any people in this school who had developed it above the 7th step. Tianling had to admit that he wasn't sure about this. After all, Dianxia energy was only developed to the 7th step to enter the inner sub-school, and after entering, no one continued to develop it as other techniques were learned there. The dragon began to brush his teeth and explained that it was not surprising that such fools could make a pile of garbage out of a mountain of gold, and it was not worth it for them to ruin a good technique. In that case, he presented Tianling with a new task. The D-level task was to develop the Dianxia energy technique to the 7th step. The reward would be the Secrets of the Supreme Dianxia. Tianling asked what these Secrets of the Supreme Dianxia were, to which the dragon replied that the Secrets of the Supreme Dianxia were the real Dianxia. Near the secret place, Master Li led the guests to the secret place and, pointing towards the gorge, said that the remains were at the bottom. But after a few moments, all 3 were shocked. After all, the dragon skeleton in the gorge had suddenly disappeared. A month later, the 5-element dragon cheered for Xiaofeng, saying that he would do well, after which Xiaofeng exhaled flames onto the fish, and the dragon praised her as the fish was fried just right. Xiaofeng inquired whether to be Lin Tian's fried fish. As a last resort, they could at least leave him a couple of frogs. The 5-elements dragon said that Tian Lin could do without all this, because his cultivation process was in full swing, and the frogs wouldn't help him here. The best thing they can do is not to touch Tianlin. Suddenly, a torrent of wind blew in their direction, knocking the fish sticks out of their hands. At the same time, at the top of the mountain, Tianling finally broke through to the 8th level of Dianxia energy. As he looked at his hand covered in energy, Tianling thought about the fact that after losing his spiritual core and regaining it, his cultivation ability had only become stronger, and he was able to reach the 8th level in just a month. Because of which, he was forced to admit that there was indeed a benefit from the dragon system. Just as suddenly, a scroll descended from the heavens and turned around to Tianlin. The system said that he had completed the task and would be able to receive the reward, after which a dragon with a technique in its teeth appeared from the scroll. Tianling wondered if these were really the secrets of the supreme Dangxia. He would like to read and understand how the technique described differs from what they are learning. Just as suddenly, the technique scroll turned into smoke and immediately began to be absorbed into Tianlin's forehead. While learning the technique, Tianling realized that some key points from this treatise were not taught at all in his school, making it no wonder that no one could master the Dianxia technique above the 7th level. Most importantly, his skills are just enough for the first step of the secrets of Supreme Dangxia, and he wants to try out the technique as soon as possible. As soon as Tianlin used the Supreme Dianxia technique, a cyclone formed around him. Tianling was surprised. After all, they were doing the wrong thing at school. Mastering this technique, the energy didn't even need to be released on purpose. Just let it go. As suddenly, the dragon of the 5 elements threw a stone at Tianlin and ordered him to stop the uncontrolled energy output now, or else he might run out to death. Suddenly, Tianling felt sick and fell to the ground. The dragon grabbed Tianlin's head and asked him who he thought he was, because you can't just go to the first stage and then use such a powerful technique so thoughtlessly. One must first reach the 3rd or 4th stage, and only then can one enjoy it to the fullest. In response, Tianling could only say that this technique squeezed people like a lemon, after which the dragon helped Tianling up, and Tianling promised that he would be more careful with it. Suddenly, Xiaofeng shoved a bite-sized fish into Tianlin's mouth and said that she had saved it especially for him, after which she stroked Tianlin's head and he thanked her for her kindness. Masters. Zhou Hiyang said that she had been here for over a month, but it was all to no avail, so they would have to return empty-handed and report back to the management. Master Lu said that the disappearance of the dragon remnants is really unexplainable and explained that they are doing their best to find them. The search is under his control. Uncle Chung then suggested that the remains had been stolen by someone, and they needed to find the culprit as soon as possible. Otherwise, there would be consequences. Walking outside, Zhou Hiyang wondered who could have stolen the remains. After all, there was no great power or even disciples with serious skills in this place. Uncle Chung asked Madam if she remembered that guy, because they had met him in a secret place that day, which meant he was under suspicion. But Zhou Hiyang immediately refuted this option, saying that it was simply impossible. Then she blushed and said that she meant that he was a good man. And besides, he wasn't so strong that he could drag away the skeleton of a huge dragon by himself. Looking at the flushed madam, Uncle Chen could not agree that she was right. Suddenly, they felt a flash of energy on the mountain. Uncle Cheng was interested in this, because it was like someone had reached the 8th stage of Dianxia energy, and he wondered who in such an establishment was capable of such a thing. Chu Hiyang had an idea that it could be that guy, and so she asked her uncle if she could go see. Meanwhile, in the mountains, Tianling finished the fish and told Xiaofeng that it was the most delicious fish he had ever eaten. Then the dragon added that it would be even tastier if he chewed it instead of swallowing it whole. Suddenly, Tianling heard footsteps behind him, and then the girl said that according to the master, someone was able to reach the 8th step of Dianxia energy, and she had come to see it. Xiaolu asked what Tianling was doing here, and he asked why she cared. Xiaolu said that a person who had reached the 8th step in any way could not be Tianling. Tianling asked why she felt that way, to which Xiaolu replied that he should think about it himself, as he had neither a noble background nor a normal spiritual core. After which, she asked if he really thought he could defeat Du Cheng, because if his father hadn't intervened, Tianling would have been a corpse, to which Tianling replied that it's not like that, and in fact, the master saved Du Cheng. Xiaolu demanded Tianling to shut his mouth, as he is not worthy to talk about Du Cheng, and she also wants Tianling to know that she would never marry him. Tianling asked if she really thinks he needs her, since he wouldn't take her for nothing. Hearing this, Xiaolu became angry, causing a vein to swell on her face, and she said that he was a bitch. Then she made a fist and shouted that he was dead, but suddenly Xiaolu's fist was stopped by someone. While Xiaolu was trying to understand what had happened and who this girl was, Zhou Hiyang asked Tianling if he was a person who had reached the 8th step, after which she hugged his arm and admitted that she had realized from the beginning that he was gifted, and she was sure that reaching the 8th step was far from the limit for him. Tianling asked how she ended up here. Xiaolu said that this was nonsense, because there was no way Tianling could reach the 8th step, after which Uncle Chen glared at her with his bald head and explained that it was true, because the young man was actually very capable, and he had indeed reached the 8th step. If she didn't believe it, however, she had better see for herself. Xiaolu impulsively agreed to test Tianlin She believed that he wouldn't be able to bear her sudden blow, and these two would make sure she was right. After which, Xiaolu ran up and punched Tianling in the chest. Xiaolu was shocked and tried to figure out if it was true, because he barely felt her blow. Tianling asked why she cared about him, as they had already found out that he was not interested in her. Zhou Heyan screwed up her face and said that since Xiaolu was personally convinced, she could go and report everything to her father. Xiaolu immediately rushed over to warn Ducheng, and he did something about it. Zhou Heyan smirked. It seemed to her that everything that happened was like that night in a secret place. After which, Zhou Heyan admitted that she had initially doubted that he had reached the 8th step, yet she was happy for him. Except, what he did just now was not at all like ordinary Danxia energy. Tianling played dumb and asked what she was talking about. After all, he was just practicing Dianxia energy, nothing more or less. He couldn't tell her the truth after all. The Danxia energy secrets was a lost technique, and if anyone found out that it was available to him, there would be many questions. Therefore, it was better for him not to advertise it at the moment. Zhou Heyan assumed that she had imagined it, after all. She hadn't seen anyone who could break through the 8th step in a long time. Afterwards, she squeezed her hand on his chest and said that the most important thing was that he was perfectly fine. After all, if you don't practice properly, you can lose touch with reality. Zhou Heyan said that she actually had to leave soon, and she was very happy that she had time to see him again before she left. At this moment, Tianling realized how she felt about him. Tianling asked Madame to let his clothes go, otherwise people might start talking about stuff. Zhou Heyan became uneasy as she saw a glowing head behind the stone, after which she apologized to Tianlin and admitted that she was really happy for him. Uncle Chen said that it was time for them to move out, as further postponement might anger their leadership, to which Heyan embarrassedly replied that she was on her way. Chu Hiyam wondered if they would meet again. After all, she wished they would. After which she said she had to go and tilted her head and said goodbye. Just as suddenly, Tianling asked for her to stop. After all, he never told her his name. He said his name was Ling Tian. Zhou Heyan smiled and said that he could call her Heyan from now on if they met again. Tianling told the sunset-fading Heyan that they would meet again. The dragon on Tianling's head smoked and complained that the place reeked of future relationships, from which Tianlin asked if he had been eavesdropping all this time. The dragon asked if Tianling thought he was willing to listen to all of this, because if he didn't need to give out tasks, he wouldn't even approach him. After which, the dragon of the 5 elements took out a scroll with Tianling's new task. This was a C-level task, the goal of which was to win first place in the inner sub-school entrance exam. The reward was a treatise with the techniques of practicing the movements of the secrets of the Supreme Dianxia and 20 Draco points. Tianling admitted that he understood what practicing moves was, but he didn't know what Draco balls were, to which the dragon replied that they were the points he scored, which were then... The dragon lit a cigar again and said that he wouldn't tell about the Draco balls until Tianling scored 100 points. Tianling said that it all sounded too murky. After all, he didn't even know if he needed it. The dragon hit Tianling on the head and asked what he was carrying and threatened to gnaw him alive for saying such words. Tianling asked the dragon to stop as he was bleeding. After that, the dragon decided to show something to Tianlin to dispel his skepticism. He had recently added new features to the system, after which he showed Tianlin the version 1.0 multiple-choice task system. Tianlin had 3 D-level quests in front of him, and he could get 5 dragon points for each one. The first task is to level up the Secrets of the Supreme Dianxia to the 2nd level. Reward: 5 Draco balls and a dragon badge. Second quest: find the missing cat. Reward: 5 Draco balls and a dragon sticker. Third task: exchange knowledge with someone from the school. Reward: 5 Draco balls and a dragon sticker. Tianling asked what the other cards and stickers were, to which the dragon replied that it was the dragon's signature merch, and added that everyone liked merch. Tianling skeptically asked who liked it. Just as suddenly, Xiaofeng pushed him aside and shouted that she needed more stickers and cards. While Xiaofeng was chasing after the merch, the dragon revealed that even after completing the C-level task, Tianlin would still have to get his Draco balls up to 100 with D-level tasks. Tianling asked if all the C-level tasks were so difficult. After all, the competition in the exam would not be easy, and there were already a bunch of disciples who had developed Dianxia energy above the 6th level. After that, the dragon took out his branded laptop and said that there were no good students in the D sub-school, so Tianlin had nothing to worry about. But the students of the C sub-school were the dark horses. Tianling realized that his intuition didn't fail him, since there would be such strong opponents among the disciples, and Xiaofeng took the points from the dragon. Suddenly, one of the female disciples came up to Tianlin and said that the master was calling him. He already knew that Tianling had reached the 8th step, so he wanted to discuss his prospects in detail. Tianlin felt a little uneasy at how quickly the rumors were spreading in a dark alley. Tianlin asked the girl why she brought him here, to which the woman nervously replied that the matter was rather delicate, and the master wanted to discuss it discreetly. Suddenly, a click was heard, and a trapdoor leading into the darkness opened beneath Tianlin. Tianling said that they could think of something harder if they wanted to get rid of him. He then began bouncing off spikes and off walls, making his way to the exit, as he suddenly noticed a strange glowing object in the sky. This was the master's glowing pouch, from which stones immediately began to fall. The person watching this hoped that Tianling would definitely die this time. The fat man said that if Tianling survived again, Du Chen would kill them, to which the skinny man replied that Tianling was definitely dead after all. It wasn't just because the master's daughter had given them the magic pouch. Considering the size of the boulders, no 8th level would be able to survive something like this. Fatty felt a bit regretful because of Tianlin's death, because now they wouldn't be able to find out how he managed to excel in Danxia energy. Skinny wondered why he had decided to talk about it, because he couldn't just play nice after what they had done that night. They're already tied up, and there's no turning back. Moreover, they don't need Danxia energy because they can just wait for Duchen to become the new master and put them somewhere even without Danxia. Just as suddenly, a shout of flaming sword was heard from the room below the boulder, immediately followed by an X-shaped cut on the boulder. Tianling chopped the boulder and shouted that they wouldn't kill him so easily. Duchen's henchmen were shocked that Tianling had survived. Fatty used a magic pouch. The latter then started shooting stones at Tianling, but Tianling easily cut them down. Seeing this, the skinny man started begging for mercy, shouting that Duchen and the master's daughter were to blame for everything, and that he himself didn't care about Tianling. Suddenly, Tianlin realized that it was the same voice he heard before he was thrown into the gorge. This person was afraid that they would be accused of murder if Tianlin's death was revealed. Tianling got angry and attacked the guys, shouting that their fears were justified, because now he knew everything. Then the rumble of an explosion rumbled through the neighborhood, and in the place where there were 2 people, only a sack was left lying there. Tianling was astonished to find this pouch, after all. Master always carried this pouch with him, and Ziyan couldn't just steal it. This could only indicate that Master Lu. Just as suddenly, Tianling felt someone watching him. The girl reported to Du Cheng that the master pouch was in Tianling's hands, which made Cheng angry. But the loss of the pouch was only half the trouble, for brothers Mo and Mu were also. Du Cheng ordered not to mention these 2 cretins in front of him anymore. He would personally meet with the master and tell him that Tianling had stolen the pouch. After searching the room, Master Tianling would not be able to justify himself. But Ziyan immediately protested, because she had personally asked her father for the pouch, and if they went to her father, he would reveal their plot. If they went to their father, they and even their father would be in trouble. So it was better not to rush into this decision. After a while the dragon and Xiaofeng were enjoying their snacks, Tianling, who was sitting on a tree, shouted that he had found what he was looking for. After all this time, he found the missing cat listed in the assignment. The dragon said that the D-level task was completed, and awarded Tianlin 5 Draco points, then tossed up a dragon sticker, which was immediately caught by Xiaofeng, who was happy that she had more merch. Tianling told the dragonkin that he had finally collected 100 Draco balls, and asked what he was collecting them for, after which the dragon asked Tianlin to look, and a woman composed of water appeared in the air. The dragon immediately dispelled it while apologizing for the slight spoiler, and showed Tianlin the answer to his question, after which the interface of the store for Draco balls appeared in front of Tianlin. There were 5 types of items: pills, techniques, items, treasures, and spells for both humans and dragons. Tianling asked if he could acquire something, but the dragon shouted for him to stop. After that, he took out a book and explained that first, Tianlin needed to think carefully about what he needed now, because every time he opened a window with product categories, 1 Draco Bolt would be spent. At the same time, the prerequisite for opening was to have 100 Draco Balls, which meant that he could only open the store once now. Tianling said that the exam would be in 3 stages, and in order for him to pass all of them, he needed to develop his own strength. After pondering about it in his ear, Tianling made his choice. The dragon found Tianlin's choice quite interesting, and triggered the exchange. Du Cheng's room. Du Cheng was satisfied that he was finally able to reach the 8th level of Danxia energy. Then he asked Xiaolu if all the windows were closed, as it would be bad if the energy weathered out and someone noticed it. Xiaolu asked him not to worry, then asked why this energy was not like Dianxia energy. She was frightened as it was not once Danxia energy. It was something sinister. Du Chen replied that he was not a fool to cultivate for a whole month like Tianling to break through to the 8th step. Therefore, he made a pill using a secret family recipe. He could use it to expand the boundaries of his abilities in no time. Xiaolu's eyes glistened, and she asked why she hid this pill before. Then she demanded that he give her the pill right away. But Duchen hid the pill and said that it was not a toy for her. Xiaolu became furious and reminded him that they would be getting married soon. And yet he wouldn't even share a pill with her. Du Chen explained that it wasn't about his greed, and Xiaolu demanded a response from him. After which the veins on Du Cheng's face ballooned, and he explained that this pill had terrible side effects. And if used inappropriately, a person can be torn from the inside out. Xiaolu was astonished at what she heard, and Du Cheng said that the most important thing for him was to finish off Tianling using any available methods. After a while, Tianling complained to the dragon about the strange C-level assignment, to find the dragon fang. After all, he can't waste time on it because of tomorrow's exam. Considering the urgency of the situation, the dragon agreed to give Tianlin a hint, and said that the fang should be looked for in the waterfall area. Tianling asked if the dragon had a waterfall in a secret place, but Xiaofeng shouted that it was a different waterfall, for she had seen it yesterday. The dragon flew up to Xiaofeng and asked her why she was squawking, and then threatened to put her back in the egg if she meddled with her own affairs. But what Xiaofeng received from Xiaofeng was already enough for Tianling. After all, there's only one waterfall in the vicinity of Yuzhou School. After arriving at the place, Tianling wondered where he should look for the dragon fang. Then he wondered which dragon fang he wanted. Suddenly he heard someone's voice nearby. Looking down, Tianling saw an old lady who was trying to catch up with her floating slipper. The old lady ordered the slipper to stop, but it continued to twist, spin, and swim away as suddenly someone pulled it out of the water. Tianling gave the old lady the slipper and asked her to be more careful next time. The old woman smiled at Tianlin and praised him for his kindness, then asked him to help her put on her shoes. Tianling was surprised at such a request, but still agreed to help. After all, it might be difficult for her because of her age. After which, the old woman lifted her leg, and Tianling noticed that something was wrong with her. Looking up higher, he saw a girl shrouded in mists, who immediately began to praise him for his bravery, deference, and courtesy. After which she said that the object of Tianlin's search was behind the waterfall and immediately dispersed. Thinking over what had happened, Tianling assumed that he had just met a sky dweller. Tianling entered the cave behind the waterfall and saw a huge fang, as a dragon suddenly appeared and immediately threw a small blue ball at Tianling, after which he admitted that he didn't expect that Tianling could complete the task so quickly. Tianling asked if this ball was an incubation seed. The dragon said that it was not yet and raised his dragon fang, after which another dragon egg appeared in place of the fang. Tianling asked if he would have a new dragon when he put the seed on the egg, and the dragon suggested he try it. Tianling placed the seed on top of the egg and awaited the hatching with anticipation. Suddenly, the seed rolled and fell to the ground, frightening Tianling with it. Tianling, frightened by what happened, asked the dragon why nothing happened and if the egg could be defective. The dragon wiped his snout with a handkerchief and explained that there was no dragon spirit in this egg yet. After which, he took out his watch and assumed that Tianling probably wanted to learn about the dragon spirit, but he didn't have time for it right now as he had to study for the exam. The dragon picked up the egg and immediately flew away, causing Tianling to not have time to ask where he could get the dragon spirit. The competition area. Tianling reflected on the fact that he hadn't been here for a long time. After the destruction of the spiritual core, he hadn't even dared to come here to watch the other guys perform. But now, he was fully prepared and confident in his abilities. Of the 6 contenders, only he and Du Cheng are from the D sub-school, while the other 4 are from the C sub-school. A man came on stage and said that the 6 of them were the best students of the outer sub-schools, and each of them was incredibly gifted to be here today. But in order to enter the inner sub-school, they must pass an exam. In addition, once they pass the inner sub-school, they commit to working at Yuzhou School for life after graduation. The only condition that they can avoid this is that they can then enter one of the 10 great schools in the Celestial Empire. Tianling's goal was to enter one of the 10 great schools to make his name famous, and everyone knew him within a radius of tens of thousands of lightyears. For Du Chen, this was just a step towards becoming a master of the school. The man on the stage said that he was their chief examiner, and his name was Wu Dan. and he would now explain the selection criteria to them. The only thing required of the students is to defeat their opponent or kill them. Tianling was surprised to hear about the fight to the death, while Du Cheng was satisfied with it. Just as suddenly, Wu Dan relaxedly asked if they were scared, because what really mattered to them was getting his approval, and they didn't have to worry about the rest. Now they would proceed to the draw. He asked if they were ready to draw the name of their opponent. Tianling was surprised to see the name on his plaque, after which Ducheng showed Tianling's nameplate and said that they would resolve their differences today. Xiaolu was happy with the outcome, as the first fight was decisive, and Tianling has no chance against Du Cheng and his secret pill. The girl asked Xiaolu to give her the antidote since she had done everything she had just asked for, but Xiaolu looked at her with disdain and said that she would give the antidote if Tianling died in this square, and if not, then the consequences are known to both of them. The girl admitted that she had indeed peeped at Xiaolu, but Xiaolu leaned over and put her hand to her neck and explained that peeping on Master's family members was punishable by whip strokes. But from the looks of it, such a lowlife wouldn't even take 2 strokes. Finished with her threats, Xiaolu began to encourage Ducheng, while the girl behind her began to mentally curse her. Before the fight, Duchen asked Tianlin if he could guess why, out of so many D sub-school students, only the 2 of them were fighting today to get into the inner sub-school. All of this is because only the 2 of them have both reached the 8th stage of Dianxia energy, which is the reason why they are on the same level. Tianling reminded Ducheng that he had tried to kill him twice. While he was enduring and waiting for today's duel, he asked if Ducheng thought that he had only come with 1/8 step. Ducheng said that coincidentally he also had a surprise for Tianling and immediately rushed to attack. Tianling blocked Ducheng's punch and shouted that he wouldn't spare him this time. Immediately after that, he summoned a fire blade and struck Ducheng with a blow to his chest. But at the same time, he felt that something was wrong. Ducheng covered his hand with a stone and broke Tianling's blade, then explained that he had cultivated the spiritual core of the land, since he knew that Tianling would use the fire sword. And what Tianling should definitely know was that the earth beat fire. Tianling continued to deliver a series of blows, trying to pierce through Ducheng's armor, while Ducheng himself advised him to give up, as such efforts were futile. After which, Ducheng shouted that it was doomsday for Tianlin and struck him with his palm, from which Tianling flew to the edge of the arena, and the spectators began to praise Ducheng louder and louder. Dragon Man flew up to Tianlin and told him that Xiaofeng was so angry that she wanted to go out and flog Ducheng, but if she went out, the examiner might notice. Tianling asked the dragon if the examiner could see dragons. The dragon suddenly shouted to Tianling not to yawn, and Tianling raised his head and saw Ducheng flying towards him. And at the last moment before the clash, Tianlin managed to dodge Ducheng's attack. Tianling told the dragon that his techniques were useless, and that he would have to use the secrets of the Supreme Dianxia. But the dragon advised him not to do so, to which Tianling replied that he was almost at the 2nd step and had no other choice. Duchen asked Tianling if Tianling was delaying the fight in order to measure his spiritual core because he was willing to go to the end. Then Duchen took out a pill and ate it. This was the 2nd pill he had eaten. If he ate 3 in a row, his body wouldn't be able to recover, so he wanted to kill Tianling as soon as possible. After which, Duchen's body was completely covered with earth, forming spikes on his body and horns on his head. After seeing Duchen's monstrous transformation, Tianling noticed that he had become even stronger, and there was no smell of Dianxia energy. Moreover, Duchen himself looked as if his body was no longer able to cope with the energy surging within him. Tianling asked Duchen why he hated him so much, because of his hatred, he was even willing to risk his life and eat pills like crazy. Duchen was slightly surprised by Tianling's question, but he still replied that it was because Tianling overshadowed him all the time. He was second to him in his presence all the time. The master's recognition, the size of the girls, and even the admiration of the disciples all belonged to Tianling alone, while no one cared about him. After which, Duchen confessed to Tianling that he was the one who had destroyed his spiritual core a few years ago and immediately attacked Tianling. He then hit Tianling and added that he was the one who lured Tianling to a secret place and killed him there. Duchen pinned Tianling to the ground, grabbing his head, and said that all this time, Tianling had only been extremely lucky, but today he was not destined to escape retribution. Duchen raised his fist and said that the hour of death had come. Just as suddenly, a huge torrent of wind threw Ducheng away from Tianling. Tianling asked Ducheng if he thought that he didn't know about all this. After all, he chose this day for revenge for a reason. He wants to show Ducheng's true face in front of everyone. The examiner was surprised that Tianling used reverse force deduction, because in his memory, Tianling is the first disciple to show this skill in the exam. Master told the examiner that Tianling was very gifted, and that he had personally put a lot of effort into developing his talent. Tianling rushed towards Du Cheng, shouting that talking was too little use, and that he would rather put all his anger into a single blow. Immediately after, he struck Du Cheng's torso with ease, piercing through his earth armor. Du Chen was stunned by his injury, which made him feel a new portion of rage. What caused him to eat the third pill? He's not going to give up that easily. Du Chen roared loudly, shouting that he had not lost yet, during which he underwent an even more terrifying transformation. Tianling realized that his affairs were bad, for Du Chen still had the strength to fight, while there was no strength left in his spiritual core to continue fighting. Just as suddenly, the water silhouette of a girl appeared behind Tianlin, and the dragon said that the time had come. He ordered the Lord of Lakes, Lord of Rivers, Dragon Spirit to awaken, immediately after which the dragon egg cracked and opened, surprising Tianlin. The Lake Lord immediately transformed into a water dragon and attacked the shocked Du Cheng. The attack hit the target, surprising Wu Dan, who almost immediately pulled out an umbrella to avoid getting wet. Tianling looked at Du Cheng in surprise, after which he said, Tianling shouted that he had defeated Du Cheng. Wu Dan said that this technique was quite curious and even reminded him of something. But Master Lu immediately admitted that he had not taught Tianling anything like this, and that it was all Tianling's own merit. So he asked him to take it into consideration when judging the fight. Tianling said that Master Lu was right, and started to look for something under his clothes, and told him that Master Lu not only did not pass on any knowledge to him, but also parted with his own treasure to kill him, after which Tianling took out a magic pouch and said that this pouch belonged to the master, and that he always carried it with him. For unknown reasons, this pouch suddenly ended up in the hands of the master's daughter and was used against him. One of the teachers immediately recognized that it was indeed Master Lu's pouch that he was carrying around, and asked the master if he was right. The audience immediately began to discuss the fact that the master was involved in such terrible things, and his daughter Ziyan tried to kill someone. A scandal is coming as a Yuzhou high school student tried to take the life of a fellow student. Ziyan shouted that Tianling was actually a sneak, because it should be obvious to everyone that he stole that pouch from her and made up the whole thing. Tianlin said that he had a witness, after which the girl who trapped Tianlin came out. She immediately claimed that Ziyan, together with Du Cheng, had forced her to trap Tianling, to kill him. Ziyan was uncomfortable with the sudden betrayal. Wudan said her word alone would be too little and asked if she had physical evidence, to which the girl replied that to kill Tianling, Ziyan told her to fill the pouch with boulders. The treasure should still remember the spell, and she would be able to demonstrate it. The bag soared into the air, after which a huge boulder fell out of it. The spectators were shocked that Master Lu could actually do that. Suddenly, Master Lu slapped Du Chen's palm and asked how he dared to drag his daughter into plotting against Tianling. Ziyan covered her mouth. She was afraid that if she confessed, her father would finish her off right there. Standing over Du Cheng's breathless body, Master Lu said that there was no place for such scoundrels in his school. And Tianling realized that he shouldn't be surprised that Master Lu could betray him at any time, because he had done that to Du Cheng without a second thought. Master Lu turned to Tianling and explained that Ziyan had been foolishly dragged into this, then reminded him that he had promised to give his daughter to the strongest, which was Tianling. Ziyan felt relieved that her father was on her side. Since she couldn't marry Du Chen anymore, Tianling wasn't a bad option either. Suddenly, Tianling raised his hand and announced that he was giving up on Ziyan. He was not going to marry Master Lu's daughter. The surrounding people immediately began to discuss that Ziyan's rejection was not something surprising, after all. She had tried to kill Tianlin, and it was unknown what else she had in store for him. Master Lu demanded that Tianling tell him why his daughter was unworthy of him. Tianling revealed that he had been growing up in the Yuzhou school since he was a child, and that the master had not kicked him out even when his rod was destroyed, for which Tianling was unspeakably grateful to the master. Even so, he asked Master not to ask about Ziyan. Master Lu grabbed Tianlin by his clothes and asked him to understand that Ziyan was not to blame for what had happened, for the fault lay with Du Cheng, and if Tianling takes Ziyan as his wife, in time. The girl interrupted the master and said that Ziyan had already been promiscuous with Du Cheng, and she knew this because she was on guard to prevent anyone from entering their room. If the master didn't believe it, he could check the condition of her shuguangsha. Hearing this, Ziyan turned pale at what Zhen Chen said and was about to threaten her. Just as suddenly, her father appeared in front of Ziyan and immediately raised his sleeve, whereupon he saw that her Shugong Shapot had faded. Master Li was enraged that his daughter had turned out to be such a lecherous wench, and ordered her to return with him, for she was punished for 10 years. After a while, Zhen entered Tianling's room and asked him to give her what he had promised, because she had helped him in every way she could. Tianling gave her the promised reward and promised that he would protect her after joining the inner sub-school. Master Lu was clearly angry with her after what happened, but even he wouldn't dare to attack her openly. Zhen thanked Tianlin and ran away in joy. The dragon admitted that he didn't expect Tianlin to be such a cruel guy, to which the latter replied that it was a forced measure, after which Tianling grabbed the dragon's head and asked about when the water dragon would appear in the flesh, for he had already realized that a second spiritual rod had appeared in him. To his element of fire was added the element of water, and so he asked again where his dragon was. The dragon snapped his fingers, immediately after which a girl fell into Tianlin's hands. Out of awkwardness, Tianlin explained that he just wanted to ask, as he didn't think that it would be so fast. The girl asked why he had moved her into that pose, and if he was trying to see what was under her skirt that way. She said he should ask her nicely, after which she could satisfy his curiosity. Tianlin felt dizzy from embarrassment and tried to explain himself, but the dragon snapped his fingers again and said that Tianlin would have to get used to this kind of thing. After all, she had such a temperament, and he also noticed that her charms had already affected Tianlin. Tianling immediately covered himself and asked the dragoness not to talk nonsense, then added that nothing had worked on him, but the dragon refused to believe Tianling's words. Tianling asked if this girl was really his water dragon, and if he has 2 spirit rods, can he switch between the 2 elements of fire and water whenever he wants? The dragon spread his hands apart and said that Tianling was dreaming after all. The new spiritual rod still needed to be improved. Otherwise, there was no way he could use it. Also, these elements are directly opposite and cannot be combined. They will always be completely independent of each other. After explaining this, the dragon said that Tianlin's main concern right now was taming the water dragon. After all, only by taming her would he be able to activate his water rod. So he gave Tianling a D-level task to tame the water dragon, and the reward would be her loyalty, 5 dragon points, and the activation of the rod. Tianling thought about how he could tame the dragon, after which the dragon added that taming her should be done in his mind. As Tianling suddenly found himself on the water, he immediately wondered how he got here and what this place was. Immediately after, a water dragoness appeared beside him and explained that this was the place where she would evaluate him. Tianling covered himself with a blush and asked about the assessment. The dragoness replied that she wanted to be loyal to a strong man, not just anyone. But considering how handsome Tianling is, she is willing to make a discount for him. All he needs to do is touch her, and she will serve him. Tianling wondered how she wanted him to touch her, and why did her words sound so ambiguous? The dragoness smiled and said that it was up to him to figure out how to touch her. After all, if he touched her, she would be at his disposal forever. Tianling called for a catastrophic punishment and said that it obviously wouldn't be easy. The dragoness asked Tianlin to remember that he was surrounded by water, after which she created many water spikes, and added that it wasn't his element yet. Tianling shouted that it didn't make any difference to him since he had already set up and nothing would stop him, after which he chopped down the spikes flying at him. Immediately afterward, he directed his attack against the water dragoness. Suddenly, she grabbed his sword and asked him what it was, then asked him to warn her about this kind of thing, because she could burn her fingers with it. And unfortunately for Tianling, she wouldn't be surprised by this kind of thing. The Lord of the Lakes easily broke off the tip of the fire sword and said that if he wanted to get results, he'll have to pull an unexpected trump card out of his sleeve. Immediately afterward, she sent a tsunami down on Tianlin. Covering himself from the water, Tianling wondered what she would say if he acted more unexpectedly. He then kicked the water, creating a pillar of water, which the dragoness easily dodged. She thought it was funny that he used a column of water against her, because he was pointing her own weapon at her, which was rather curious since he still hadn't touched her. While the dragoness was mocking him, Tianling discreetly took out a pouch, after which he lifted it sharply and boulders flew out of the pouch. The dragoness created a water barrier and began to yawn when the boulders failed to hit it. She wondered if that was all he was capable of. Tianling took advantage of the dragoness' distraction and reached for her leg, but she immediately shivered and admitted that she had in no way expected him to trespass on her legs. Tianling called out to Xiaofeng and shouted for her to pull him away. right after which she appeared behind his back and pushed Tianlin forward, pushing him and the dragon faces together, which caused them to accidentally kiss. Xiaofeng pretended to cover her eyes, and Tianling embarrassedly shouted that he had asked her to pull him away instead of pushing him forward. The water dragoness hugged Tianlin and said that it could be considered as a touch, which meant that she, Zeiji, now belonged to him. After which, she asked Tianlin to get ready as she was about to enter him. Immediately after, she turned to water and rushed towards Tianling. After completing the task, a dragon appeared and immediately congratulated the soaking wet Tianlin, for he now had 2 dragons. Tianling examined himself and said that he had started to feel his water spiritual core. The dragon said that since they were done with all the procedures to activate the water rod, it was time for Tianling to return to the real world, right after which he touched Tianling's forehead and added that he was already waiting there. Tianlin got up from the bed and saw Master Lu standing at the entrance. Master Lu asked if Tianling was badly bruised today and if his bones were intact. He revealed that he had set a healing potion specifically for Tianling and told him that this potion would help him recover both physically and mentally. Tianling thanked the master for his concern and said that there was no need to brew the potion for him because he was in the process of entering the inner sub-school and he was no longer Lu's disciple. He wasn't going to take the medicinal potion from the old fox's hands after all. No one can know what the old fox has in mind. Master Lu recalled that he had killed Du Cheng today instead of Tianlin, and there was no telling how many more nightmares it would cost him. After all, if Tianlin had done it, Du Cheng's family would definitely take revenge on him. Hearing this, Tianling asked, why did Master Lu let Du Cheng make an attempt on his life? Furthermore, the master didn't even mind his daughter being involved. Master Lu threw down the tray and shouted that Tianling was nothing but an ungrateful rascal, and since he was so eager for their master-disciple relationship to end, so be it. Immediately after that, Master Lu ran out of Tianling's room and said to himself that since Tianling didn't like it the good way, it would be the bad way. The dragon picked up the bottle and suggested that Du Cheng's family had promised a lot to Tianling's former master, which made him turn a blind eye to all those pranks. And now, after the quarrel, this master could tell Du Cheng's relatives something that would make Tianling's survival in this school much more difficult. Tianling, bowing his head, told the dragoness that there was truth in his words. For Du Cheng's family really has a lot of influence in the Yuzhou school. He is only entering the inner sub-school, and it will still be a while before he manages to become strong enough to fight back against any clan. Unfortunately, Tianlin had almost no Draco Balls right now. Otherwise, he could have bought some technique. The dragon said that it was all because Tianlin had spent everything on the antidote and cloud and lightning secrets for Zhen Kang. The dragon said that there were not many techniques that could compare to the secrets of the Supreme Dianxia, so he should continue to cultivate this technique to eventually become invincible. But since Tianling wanted to buy something so badly, he was willing to let him accumulate Dragon Balls. After that, he gave Tianling a C-level assignment, the goal of which was to defeat Qinyun from the C sub-school, the reward for which would be 20 Dragon Points. Seeing the reward, Tianling wondered how strong Qinyun was. The dragon replied that it wasn't that she was so dangerous, but in the future, her fate would be closely tied to Tianling. Tianling blushed and looked away and said that his heart already belonged to Heiyan. The dragon suggested not to talk about it for the time being, and then reminded Tianling that they had already become friends recently, so he wanted to ask one question. Does Tianlin know who his parents are? Tianling said that he was an orphan. According to Master Lu's story, he was found in a pile of dead refugees, which could mean his parents are most likely dead. The dragon smirked and said that it didn't sound very convincing. Then he asked if there was a chance that Master Lu might have lied to Tianling, and that Tianling wasn't even really human. Tianling immediately cried out and asked what the one was carrying. After all, he has both arms and legs, so he asked how could he not be human? The dragon asked if only humans have arms and legs in this world. The dragon asked Tianling why he thought that he could not be another being who had taken the form of a human. The dragon asked Tianlin if he had ever wondered why they could communicate. In addition, Xiaofeng and Ziji are dragons, but they appear to him in human form. Tianling grabbed the dragoness and asked what he wanted to say with that. Just as suddenly, Tianling realized that he might actually not be human. The dragon said that Tianling got it right, for there was something of both human and werewolf in him. Simply put, he is like a trance. Tianling asked the dragonkin to speak more seriously about it. After all, there are humans and even rare beasts like dragons in their world. But he doesn't know what he is. The dragon explained that he would have to start the story from ancient times, a time when humans and beasts everywhere were cultivating. In those days, people who had reached the highest degree of cultivation were called celestials, and beasts upon reaching the highest degree became werewolves. Both celestials and werewolves could take on human form. In this state, they often fell in love with each other. And even when a great disaster occurred, the Supreme Celestial and Supreme Werewolf hand in hand saved this world, after which a great grace came. But having reached its peak, the Supreme Progenitor suddenly betrayed the Supreme Werewolf. The former ripped the soul of the latter to shreds and took away the beast's ability to cultivate. Therefore, now there are no werewolves anymore, only rare beasts like dragons. It's gotten to the point where almost all beasts have lost their self-awareness, and humans use the horns, hooves, and bones of rare beasts for alchemy. Tianling asked what kind of tales the dragon was telling, but the dragon advised Tianling to look at his back, after which the dragon tore the clothes on Tianlin's back and held up a mirror. Seeing his back, Tianlin wondered what it was. After all, he's never had something like this on his back before, and he doesn't even know when it appeared. The dragon explained that the fact that he could talk to them and use their power already proved that Tianling wasn't exactly human. Tianling sighed as he put his hand on his head and said that the dragon had poured too much information on him. He would still take a long time to digest such a thing, after all. He was already used to thinking of himself as a human and living as a human. Gigi said that when she helped Tianlin in battle, his examiner noticed it, and therefore if he won first place, he would have time to communicate with that master, after which Tianlin would understand everything. Tianling asked if she was referring to examiner Wu Dan. Dragon said that if Tianling really wanted to know the whole truth about himself, he needed to beat everyone in the exam. The next day, Wu Dan announced that although the first stage was not without excesses, the first stage had been a success, and there are 3 people who qualify for the next stage: Qin Yun, Chao Guo, and Tianling. Wu Dan explained that the 3 of them would draw lots to participate in the next round. The one with the red-tipped wand would be exempted from the fight. Those who drew sticks with white tips would fight each other. Chao Guo took out a wand with a red tip and rejoiced at how lucky he was, while Qin Yun gloomily looked at Tianling. Qin Yun admitted that there was no way she had expected that her last obstacle to pass the exam would be the D sub-school's scum. After all, she is Qin Yun and she does not know defeat. To which Tianling replied that he could never understand how someone like Qin Yun could have so much conceit. Tianling asked if they were fighting in the same square. Since he was here, he obviously deserved to be here as much as she did. Qin Yun said that it still didn't mean as if they were equal and rushed to attack. Tianling was surprised by her speed but still managed to dodge. Then he swung to throw, thinking that he was no stranger to it either. Qin Yun used the lunar coolness winter moon to dodge Tianling's attack and cover her sword with coldness, after which she used the moon coolness full moon, swinging her sword and cutting Tianling's catastrophic punishment. Tianling was astonished that Qin Yun had broken his fire sword so easily. Qin Yun said that Tianlin was finished, and that he shouldn't have tried to jump above his head. After which, she hid her sword in the scabbard, concentrating cold energy, adding that he was not her opponent. Immediately after which, she used the moon chill, stabbing moon, releasing a multitude of ice blades at Tianlin. There was no way Tianling could dodge so many blades, causing them to pierce through him. After finishing her attack, Qin Yun hid her sword in her scabbard and said that they were already done, to which Tianling, to her surprise, replied that this wasn't the end. Tianling relit the flaming sword and said that he wasn't finished yet. Qin Yun said that she had been going to this exam for 10 years, while Tianling was only needed in this exam so that she would have someone to defeat. Therefore, she suggested him to lie on the ground, otherwise he wouldn't be able to leave the platform alive. Tianlin said that even if it was like this, he wouldn't give up. After all, he had to pass this exam. After which, Tianlin's sword began to be surrounded by water. Qin Yun said that he was leaving her no other choice and grabbed the hilt of her blade once again. Tianling rushed towards Qin Yun while she used the moon coolness, stabbing moon. But this time, Tianling managed to dodge all the blades, during which he said that he couldn't be defeated by it a second time. To which Qin Yun replied that she hadn't even tried to fight him, just as suddenly Tianling's blade was destroyed once again. Qin Yun said that it was only a distraction, immediately after which Tianlin's neck was pierced. Unexpectedly, Tianling turned into water, taking advantage of the hydro transformation, shocking Qin Yun with it. In the next instant, Tianling at her back suggested that there was no way she had expected such a thing, after which he struck Qin Yun for the first time. The onlookers felt sorry for Qin Yun, as she had obviously been hit hard, and they also wondered what kind of technique Tianling had used. Qin Yun admitted that she had in no way imagined that Tianling could reincarnate in the form of water. She had indeed miscalculated, but Qin Yun swung her blade towards Tianlin and shouted that she hadn't lost yet, after which Tianling and Qin Yun rushed at each other to end this fight. Suddenly, the examiner grabbed their hands, stopping the fight. This caused Tianling and Qin Yun's faces to collide, after which Wu Dan suggested that the audience congratulate Tanlin and Qin Yun, as they had both entered the inner school. Tianling apologized to Qin Yun and said that it was an accident. Dan asked why the two of them were so glum, since they had both gotten in. Tianling awkwardly asked how they could do this. After all, they hadn't figured out who was stronger yet. Afterward, Wu Dan reminded that the main condition for passing the exam is approval. Qin Yun ordered Tianlin not to even think about the fact that it was over, because sooner or later, they would still find out who was stronger, after which Qin Yun left. Chaogo asked why no one had said anything about him and whether he had entered, to which he was told that the one who pulled out the wand with the red end was immediately eliminated. Tianling told Wu Dan that he had some questions for him. He decided to seize the moment and take the bull by the horns. Wu Dan said that he already knew what questions Tianling wanted to ask him and promised to answer them tonight. After all, they will have to talk about taboo subjects. In the evening of the same day, Jieji treated Tianlin's wounds while Xiaofeng gathered supplies. The dragon admitted that he thought that Tianlin's water rod energy wouldn't be enough for hydro transformation, but Tianlin had surprised them all. Therefore, he should rest now, as this technique was very energy-consuming. Gigi said that she was surprised at how quickly Tianling learned to switch between elements, for which she praised him. He wasn't human after all. Tianling asked her not to start about it again, and Jieji sadly said that she wouldn't do it again. Tianling took out his hiking bag and said that he would go to Wu Dan right now to find out everything about himself and them. As soon as Tianling approached the master's cabin, Wu Dan said that he could enter. Tianling opened the door and said he wanted to ask about. Just as suddenly, a black silhouette appeared from the house and immediately jabbed its hand into Tianlin's chest, after which the hand pulled out the spiritual rods from Tianlin's body. Wu Dan was slightly surprised that there were only 2 elements at Tianling's disposal at the moment. Tianling asked what it meant and asked the master to explain it. Wu Dan said that the conversation couldn't be short, and they might be overheard here, so they'd better move to another place where he'd explain everything in detail. Tianling asked which place, right after which Wu Dan grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and started forming clouds. When the clouds formed a figure, Tianling asked Master Wu who it was, to which Wu Dan replied that it was the Supreme Celestial and Supreme Werewolf, in the year of confronting the Great Catastrophe. Before this catastrophe, the world belonged to celestials and werewolves. But afterward, there were only beasts who could not become werewolves. This happened millions of years ago, so people know little about those events. Tianling asked the master how he knew about those events. He wanted to hear the answer since it was exactly the same as the dragon's story. Wu Dan covered half of his face and asked Tianlin to guess it for himself. Tianling was shocked to see who Master Wu really was. Wu Dan, who had partially turned into a cat, said that he wasn't human either, or rather not fully human. Tianling was shocked that Wu Dan was a werewolf after all. It was impossible for the master of their school to be a werewolf. Wu Dan completely took on a cat-like appearance and began to lick his lips and said that Tianling was acting as if he didn't have dragon scales on his back. And to hell with the scales. He died and then was magically reborn with a dragon skeleton. He asked if this surprised Tianling, after which he added that Tianling was not reborn, but resurrected. Tianling asked how he knew everything, particularly about the dragon skeleton. Wu Dan reminded Tianlin that he himself had grown up under the Yuzhou school and should know how big the area of the secret place was. That said, Du Cheng didn't throw it somewhere in the void, but right on top of the dragon skeleton. Wu Dan asked if Tianling thought it was an accident. Tianling realized that teacher Wu was talking about the day he was thrown into the cliff, and guessed exactly how it fell on the dragon skeleton. Wu Dan created a miniature portal, and admitted that he was the one who had saved Tianlin back then. Tianling asked the master why he did this. After all, if he was one of the barely surviving werewolves, wouldn't it be better if he kept a low profile and didn't get involved in any stories? To which the dragon replied that he had done it for revenge. To take revenge on the Supreme Celestial who controls all things on earth and in heaven. Tianling lifted the dragoness by the scruff of his neck and asked why the dragoness climbed out. Immediately afterward, Wu Dan kneeled down and greeted the dragoness. The dragon asked Wu Dan not to be so ceremonious with him after all. They were battle buddies. After which, a huge dragon paw lifted Wu Dan from his knees. Wu Dan grinned and admitted that it was his fault, for he had forgotten for a second that there was no one in the werewolf clan and now he would be able to take over. Then he started laughing along with the dragoness. Listening to the master's dialogues with the dragonkin, Tianling wondered what the hell was going on here. Wu Dan asked Tianling to ignore what had happened, and asked if Tianling knew that the Yuzhou school was founded for his sake. One day, the Supreme Celestial had received a prediction that the hope of thousands of werewolves would appear in the Yuzhou school, and once he discovers this school, his days will be numbered. Wu Dan grabbed Tianlin's shoulders and asked him to be extremely careful from now on. After all, what he had done in the exam was unlikely to go unnoticed. From now on, Tianling must be quiet and not attract unnecessary attention. After all, he was their last hope. Now he is in the inner sub-school, and tomorrow there will be a procedure for selecting mentors, where Tianling must go to Wu Dan as an apprentice. After a while, Tianling pondered over how quickly events were unfolding. Now he had to get used to the fact that he was half human and half werewolf, and the fate of all werewolves also depends on him. Even though he has grown up among humans since childhood, Tianling realizes that he can't just start seeing them as enemies overnight. And in particular, he can't see her as an enemy. Tianling wondered how He Yang was doing now and wished he could meet her soon. The next day, according to the results of the exam, they have two new disciples, Tianling and Qin Yun. New students must choose their mentor, Shouju, Lianhe, Wu Yan, or Wu Dan. From yesterday's conversation with Master Tianling, he learned that Chief Master Wu Yan is the strongest, Master He is the strictest, Master Ju is the most lax, and Wu Dan himself is the kindest. The safest option for him is Wu Dan. Qin Yun chose Lianhe as her master. Suddenly, Tianling was approached by Chief Master Wu Yan, which made Wu Dan feel uneasy. Wu Dan reminded Wu Yan that Tianling was still choosing his master, to which Wu Yan replied that there was no need for that, as she would choose Tianling herself. He would be her last disciple, and would train under her from now on. Wu Dan tried to talk his sister out of it, reminding her that the initiative should come from the student, and he shouldn't be pressured like that. Hearing Wu Dan call her sister, Wu Yan gloomily looked at him and explained that Tianling would be her last disciple, and she had no intention of listening to anyone's objections. Wu Dan couldn't contradict the Supreme Master, and so he agreed with her decision. Wu Yan said that was the end of it, and then she left. And Tianling thought about the fact that Wu Dan had called her sister. He wondered if it was in a literal sense, or if, at this moment, someone appeared from the crowd and stared at Tianlin. Tianlin killed his nephew Du Cheng, and their family can't tolerate such insults. But unfortunately, Master Wu is too influential and high-ranking, which makes them unable to reach Tianling, but he will definitely pay for Du Cheng's death. Du Cheng's uncle vowed that he would definitely take revenge on Tianling. Training Hall. Wu Yan told Tianlin that from today onwards, he would be training under her. Including him, she only has 3 disciples. Matching her disciple status isn't easy, causing Tianlin to have to try his best to keep his place. Otherwise, Tianling will go back to where he came from. Tianling was terrified that it wasn't getting easier by the hour. He thought that the matter was already done. But as it turned out, he might be kicked out of the inner sub-school. He had thought that there was only one scenario for him to continue his studies at one of the great schools in the Celestial Empire, but this, Wu Yan said that since Tianling was silent, he understood everything, then swung the bamboo stick at him. Tianling immediately drew his fire sword to block the attack. The fight had begun. He thought it was obvious that he was no match for her, but considering that her weapon was a bamboo stick, he had a chance. Tianling blocked Wu Yan's attack, but he couldn't understand what had happened. His fire sword couldn't cleave the bamboo stick. Wu Yan struck Tianling and ordered him not to be misled by the appearance of the weapon. After all, in the right hands, bamboo could be stronger than steel. Shivering because of the blow he received, Tianling guessed that Wu Yan was at least 10 times stronger than Master Lu. Therefore, it was not for nothing that Wu Dan called her the strongest. Wu Yan advised Tianlin to concentrate on his opponent, instead of thinking about weapons, right after which she swung her stick at him. Tianling realized that if he continued to resist, he would continue to get kicked in the head, and so he sat down on the floor and, receiving a blow on the head, shouted that he humbly accepts this lesson. Wu Yan put the stick away and told Tianlin that his fighting skills were lame. But he was no stranger to the rules of decorum. Besides, he is smart. And overall, she's happy with this kind of student. Tianling realized that Wu Yan didn't aim to test his fighting skills. She only needed to establish her authority. From what he had seen, it was already becoming obvious that she could defeat 3 other masters with one non-working hand. Wu Yan sat down in the chairs and told Tianlin that since he was now her student, he should learn the following. She could make even a mentally retarded person into an invincible fighter. But he would have to obey her in everything. And also, Tianlin's cultivation should always come first, and even his personal matters should not interfere with it. Tianling asked what he should do if someone attacks him for revenge. He asked this since, unlike Master Lu, Wu Yan doesn't even try to pretend to be kind. Therefore, he decided that this was exactly what a mentor should be like. Wu Yan shouted that Tianling should finish off the person seeking revenge on him. If he beat the attacker, then she would cover him from possible consequences. And if the attacker defeats Tianling, then Tianling would no longer be considered her disciple. After which Wu Yan said that she was a lot like Tianlin, because she too had to survive in this school. She adheres to the principle of being a mentor to students who do not leave others indifferent. But unconventional behavior will always generate a lot of gossip. And if Tianling is willing to bear such a burden, she is always willing to help him. Tianling thanked Master Wu Yan for her support and promised that he wouldn't disappoint her. Du Cheng's uncle gathered the people from the Du clan and told them that the clan head had given them an order to kill Tianling at any cost. Ma Zhao said that he was always willing to do the clan head's bidding. Kun Shu said, putting the interests of the clan first. Lastly, Lu Han said that the best weapon against a young man like Tianling was a beautiful girl like her. So she asked for permission to suck all of Tianling's strength out. Ma Zhao asked if Lu Han was sure she could handle it, to which Lu Han seductively replied that they wouldn't know if she could handle it or not until she tried it. Meanwhile, in Tianling's room, the dragon admitted that he didn't consider the option that third parties might be influenced by the defeat Qin Yun's disciple mission, and since it was his mistake, he would give a simpler mission next time. Jieji told the dragon that Tianling was still too delicate and immature, so she asked him to only give Tianling simple missions, otherwise his body might. Dragon immediately hit Jieji on the head and ordered her to shut up and not to spoil the plot. Tianling asked the dragon why he escaped punishment after failing the task, to which he replied that it was because of the draw. Tianling didn't win, but he didn't lose either. Therefore, from the system's point of view, the task was not completed, but it was not a failure either. Therefore, he would give Tianlin a new task right away. Level D mission. Secretly infiltrate the book depository. The reward for the task would be 10 Draco balls and a piece of golden scales. The dragon explained that it was a fairly simple task, but Tianling would receive a generous reward for completing it. Tianling asked why the dragon thought it was so easy to enter the book depository, because in fact the entrance is strictly guarded, and 100 strokes of the stick is prescribed for violating such a prohibition. Even bulls die from that. The dragon advised Tianlin not to get caught. Jieji asked if he was afraid, and giggled. When suddenly there was a knock on the door, the girl asked if Tianling's disciple lived here. She said that her name was Lu Han, and that she wanted to see him. Tianling said that she could enter. He wondered who might have business with him. After all, he had just entered the inner sub-school. This was clearly not a good thing. Lu Han admitted that she liked Tianling's performance very much, so she came to express her admiration for him. Lu Han asked if she bothered him too much. She knows it's late, but she couldn't help herself. Tianling said that it was good since she realized that she had bothered him, causing Lu Han to realize that he was quite straightforward. Lu Han told Tianlin that she likes straightforward guys like him, because others usually mumble when they see her. But Tianlin is not like that. Tianling showed himself even more straightforward by asking Lu Han to say what she wanted, since he wasn't interested in the way she was shining her breasts here. Lu Han thanked Tianlin for reminding her. After all, she wore such an outfit today, but it's been trying to slip off her all day. Inwardly, she was angry that her charms weren't working, and even assumed that Tianlin was a eunuch. Lu Han bit down on her fingernail and told herself that she wouldn't give up so easily, then promised that he wouldn't last long. Lu Han walked over to Tianlin and pressed her hand to her head and said that she started to feel dizzy, after which Lu Han pulled Tianlin towards her and asked what he was trying to do to her, since she wasn't like this at all. Trying to break free, Tianling said that he had just slipped and that he was already getting up. But Luhan asked him not to get up, even though she knows it's wrong, but she can't restrain herself. She's all on fire. Luhan said that life was too short, and thus advised Tianlin to take as long as they give, after which she exhaled pink smoke at him. Tianling lost control of himself because of the smoke, and Luhan was satisfied that he couldn't withstand the influence of her charms, because no one else could. Now that she had dealt with him, it was time for her to suck all the power out of him. Suddenly, her smoke began to escape, whereupon Jieji asked how she could call it an enchantment. After all, Luhan was still learning and learning. After waking up, Tianling grabbed Luhan's hand and ordered her not to cross the line. After all, he was the last disciple of the headmaster, and if anything happened to him, the culprits would be found and punished. Hulan was angry because Tianlin had a girlfriend. She shouted that she had only wasted her time on Tianlin. Tianling said that he could handle it himself. Jieji asked if Tianling wanted to tell them that she was interrupting them, but no matter what he said, she would also interfere in a situation like this next time. After all, she's not Xiaofeng's little girl, and she might even be jealous. Jieji reminded that she herself had yet to try out Tianling, and there was no way she could let someone else do it before her. Tianling asked her not to joke around like that. After all, he's a guy in his prime. Jieji agreed to calm down for a while and said that they had a serious conversation, then called Xiaofeng over. Xiaofeng hugged Tianlin and said that they wanted to do his combat training. Jieji admitted that they were disappointed that Tianling couldn't achieve a solid victory in the fight with Qin Yun. Right now, Tianling possessed two serious techniques, the fire sword and hydro transformation, but he was still not using them well enough. Therefore, she and Xiaofeng should better explain how to use them. After a while, Mad Jia was surprised that Tianling had a servant. The guy wasn't as simple as they had assumed. Du Cheng's uncle slapped the table and shouted that it was simply impossible because he had found out everything about Tianlin. Tianling is an orphan and has no one. Kun Shu speculated that since Tianling had been in this school for so many years, he could have tricked some simple girl into possessing him. Luhan assured everyone that it wasn't some simpleton, as she had easily dispelled her spell. Besides, Tianling was now a disciple of the headmaster, and if they wanted to eliminate him, they had to be extremely careful. Du Cheng's uncle remembered that all the rookies had to pass a trial in the beast zone of the secret place, which could be a great opportunity to get rid of Tianlin. If he was killed by some beast, then definitely no one would think anything of them. Meanwhile, Tianling had met with the master. Wu Yan revealed that her senior apprentice had been on a detour for a long time, and that even she didn't know where exactly the apprentice was right now. Wu Yan admitted that something told her that her disciple could have already surpassed the master. Right now, she would take Tianling to the second disciple. More often than not, he would be the one who would be in charge of Tianling's training, after which Wu Yan took out a scroll and admitted that she had almost forgotten to give him this. She personally chose this technique for Tianling as a more suitable technique. Secrets of the Supreme Dianxia is also a strong technique, but it's too wise and long to learn. If Tianling wants to become able to stand up for himself in the near future, then this is exactly what he needs. Tianling asked the master how she knew he was cultivating the secrets of the Supreme Dianxia. Wu Yan asked if Tianling thought that she had become a supreme master just because of her appearance, because she actually knew a thing or two about techniques. Be that as it may, practicing the Spring Sun technique would be the most useful for him right now. Wu Yan led Tianling to the lodge and, pointing her finger, said that her second disciple lived there and advised Tianling to meet him. Just as Tianling was about to knock on the doors, the second disciple said that he could enter without knocking, after which Tianling saw the elder. The elder immediately assumed that Tianling had come to see him and asked what the planks in his hands were and whether the master had given it to him. The elder snatched the technique and, seeing that it was the Spring Sun technique, suggested that Tianling didn't know how to do anything yet. He then threw the planks back to Tianling and said that his name was Bai Feng. He admitted that he could be rude at times and asked Tianling not to take it personally. If Tianling held a grudge against him, he could just say it to his face. But for something like this, he might as well beat up Tianlin. Tianling revealed that, according to his mentor, he would be trained by Bai Feng and asked when they would start. Tianling thought Bai Feng was strange and was unwilling to socialize with him. The best outcome would be to move on to cultivation. Bai Feng revealed that he had a fight planned right now. As for cultivation, it was better for Tianlin to handle it himself for now. He then added that if Tianlin had no questions for him, he would go, as he didn't want to be late for the fight, as it would be disrespectful to his opponent. Tianling asked Bai Feng to wait. Suddenly, the dragon pulled his hair and ordered him to get behind Bai Feng, because Tianling had a task to do right now. The dragon asked Tianlin to believe that he would need this reward pretty soon. Tianling asked why he needed this scrap of golden scales in the first place, to which the dragon replied that it was needed for the third dragon. After that, Tianling and the dragon went to the back entrance of the book depository. Tianling asked why such an important place was so poorly guarded. The dragon replied that there was only one guard, because no one knew about this entrance, and added that without him, Tianling would never have found this entrance. Tianling asked the dragoness to stop talking and jumped through the window of the book depository. Then the dragon snapped his fingers so the guard could get some sleep, as he was probably tired from standing in the heat all day. Walking around the book depository, Tianling pondered over the fact that the assignment only required him to get inside, but not bringing a few rare books with him would be too stupid. He didn't need books on techniques, but it would be useful to learn about combining multiple spirit rods and the interaction of the elements. Suddenly he heard someone's voice, which could only mean one thing: someone was here. Lu Han said that Du Yuan was too restless and suggested that they should not do it here. He replied that they shouldn't have let her seduce Tianling, and they should have sent Mad Zhao to deal with him, since he was so nervous while Lu Han was at Tianling's place. Suddenly, Tianling recognized that he still couldn't understand what Lu Han wanted from him. As it turned out, it was a conspiracy of the Du clan. Du Yuan asked Tianling how he dared to sneak into the book depository because he would be punished for it. Then, Lu Han agreed with Du Yuan's words and asked Tianling what he was doing here. Tianling asked what they were doing here, and asked them not to pretend that they were allowed to be here, even if they were lewd. Tianling asked not to threaten him with punishment, for they would face a much worse fate. Du Yuan shouted that since Tianling was already aware of what was happening, he would have to kill him. Then, he rushed towards Tianling. Du Yuan is rumored to be among the top 10 disciples of the inner sub-school, which is a great opportunity for Tianling to test his skills. He decided to see if he had gotten better at using his basic techniques after the girl's instruction, and he decided to start with the fire sword. Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound coming from the book depository. After defending against the sword with purple lightning, Du Yuan asked Tianling what he thought of himself. After all, he was older than Tianling, and had already been studying in the inner sub-school for not the first year. Tianling asked if Du Yuan had only cultivated chatter all this time. As blood suddenly spurted out of Du Yuan's hands, he couldn't believe that such a thing was possible. After all, no disciple of Tianling's age was capable of piercing through purple lightning. A while ago, Gigi sighed as Tianling was knocked out once again, after which she explained that he wasn't utilizing the strong capabilities of the fireside at all. She then advised him to try to change the size of the sword. After all, the denser the fire, the greater its destructive effect on a specific point, and the scattered flames had a larger area of impact. She advised him to use this knowledge wisely. While fighting Du Yuan, Tianling turned his sword into a kunai. After seeing Tianling's new weapon, Du Yuan commented that Tianling was really stupid since he couldn't handle his sword, and therefore he, as the eldest, is simply obliged to punish the youngest for his willful intrusion into the book depository. Du Yuan rushed towards Tianling as Tianling suddenly heard someone running towards them, and deciding that it was a guard, Tianling took Du Yuan's attack, avoiding damage with a hydro transformation. As soon as the guards arrived at the scene of the battle, Tianling fell at their feet, causing the guards to ask what was even going on here. Tianling said that Du Yuan had tried to kill him, while he only wanted to stop him from stealing a rare book. To make it more believable, Tianling bit his tongue and spat blood. The guards grabbed Du Yuan and said that he had gotten into trouble once, sneaking into the book depository and trying to kill one of the disciples. After which, Tianling asked if Lu Han would like to say a few words in support of Du Yuan. After all, she had been lecherous with him just a moment ago. The guard was shocked that 2 senior disciples dared to debauch in such a sacred place, and Lu Han cried out that it wasn't like that. It ended with the guards taking the couple to Master Lu Han to let her decide how to deal with them. Tianling smirked as he thought about how he had outplayed those 2. Suddenly, one of the guards decided to ask Tianling how he ended up here. Tianling immediately tried to talk himself out of it by saying that he had a sibling, and they shared the same mentor. The sibling was going to fight somewhere nearby, and he was supposed to watch the fight. Tianling was shocked at what he was saying and regretted that he hadn't thought of an excuse beforehand. As a voice suddenly came from the street, the girl asked Bai Feng what he wanted from her. The guard recognized Helian's voice and began to guess everything. Baifeng said that he had come for the obvious reason, namely to fight as they had agreed. But Helian parried by saying that she did not remember such an agreement, to which Baifeng replied, "That doesn't mean it didn't happen." The guard realized that Tianlin had told him the truth, and since Baifeng would be fighting Master Helian, he advised Tianlin to hurry to the battle site and advised him not to enter the book depository again. Helian was about to refuse to fight, but Baifeng said that if she didn't accept his challenge to fight, he'll just lie on the ground and not get up. Seeing the elder swaying on the ground, Tianling regretted that he had such a fellow man, and that he had come running here instead of returning to the dragoness for the reward. Helian agreed to fight Baifeng, then pointed at Tianling and added that she would fight if he was watching them. Baifeng shouted that there was no problem with that and immediately pulled his fellow man up, while Tianling was displeased that he wasn't even asked if he wanted to be here. Helian said that everyone in the Yuzhou school knows how good she is with the sword, and she is probably only inferior to their master. And because of that, she said that she would only use her fingers in the fight with Baifeng. Baifeng smiled and said that in that case, the victory could be awarded to him. Helian ordered Baifeng to put down the chatter and immediately attacked him with her fingers. Baifeng easily dodged the attack, commenting that although it was powerful, it was too slow. She had clearly underestimated his speed. Tianling was startled by what was happening, as suddenly the force of one of the blows rushed towards him. But a moment before he was hit, Tianling still managed to dodge the attack, after which he asked Master Helian to be at least a little more careful. Helian apologized for missing, and Baifeng asked why she suddenly stopped and asked her to continue the fight. Just as suddenly, Baifeng realized that Helian actually wanted to fight with Tianling. Baifeng untied Tianling and, holding it out towards Helian, promised that he would cheer for him. Besides, a fight with such a strong opponent should benefit him. He really hoped that Tianlin would really learn a lot from the fight with Helian, and therefore asked him to be stronger, immediately after which Helian announced the start of the fight and immediately attacked Tianling. Tianling assumed that Helian was very serious in this fight, and if he relaxed for even a second, she would finish him off. Therefore, he asked Xiaofeng and Jieji to help him so that he could give Helian a decent fight. Xiaofeng replied that she was ready, and Jieji confessed that she just loves it when Tianling is so serious. The collision of Helian and Tianling's attacks resulted in a violent explosion. Facing Tianling, Helian realized that this kid was willing to fight to the death. Moreover, he wasn't even afraid of using both of his rods at the same time. While fighting back, he even managed to move her half a step back. Meanwhile, Tianling, who had used up all his strength to survive, cursed that he was unable to fight Helian even with the efforts of 2 spirit rods. However, Helian's response didn't take long. Tianling estimated that if Helian gave him another strike like this, he would surely stretch his legs here. Therefore, the only option to somehow survive was to run away from Helian in the form of water. Helian told Tianling that his master had a keen eye for talent, but in 10 days, she would surely be even prouder of him. Baifeng told Tianling to get up already, then complained that Tianling had taken away such a great fight from him. Tianling asked the elder what would happen in 10 days, to which Baifeng replied that in 10 days, there would be a battle for the prestige of the school in which Tianling would be their representative. Baifeng told Tianlin that Yuzhou School was located in the southwest of the Chu Kingdom and didn't stand out much in any way. But the southwest region was historically considered to be very conflictual and turbulent. After all, small schools are constantly organizing provocations and challenges for each other. Usually, to resolve these disputes, a tournament is organized with the participation of students of the main masters of the schools. Baifeng then pointed towards the main hall of the Yuzhou School and said that the opponents had arrived 10 days before the tournament itself. They probably couldn't wait to get their revenge. The man greeted Master Wu Yan, then said that the day of the long-awaited tournament was approaching, and asked who she had chosen to participate this year. After which he introduced himself as the master of the Lizhu School, and admitted that he was looking forward to taking a rematch, to which Wu Yan replied that it was unlikely that they would be able to take revenge, because this year, Lizhu Academy would also suffer a defeat. Tianling asked Baifeng if he had been their school's representative the previous year, to which Baifeng replied that the senior had batted then, causing Tianling to wonder how their senior had performed. Baifeng said that she had knocked out her opponent with just 1 blow, except it wasn't another disciple but the master of their school. The master of the Lizhu School reminded Wu Yan that her disciple had defeated him a year ago. But as he had heard, this year Wu Yan wished to pit his new disciple, some scum with previously destroyed rods, against them. Wu Yan asked how he dared to gather gossip about her disciples, and immediately threw ice spikes at Master Lizhou. The Lizhu schoolmaster caught the thorn and said that he was not saying this to insult Master Wu Yan. In fact, he didn't want people around him to belittle Lizhu School's victory after the tournament, so he wanted to get a worthy opponent. He then suggested that this year's tournament should be a hunting format. Whoever could catch the most beasts in the beast zone of the secret place would be the winner. Master Lizhu pointed Wu Yan at his disciple to hint at the winner, after which he suggested that Wu Yan should admit defeat and not even participate. To do so, she could just announce her surrender to everyone. Tianling couldn't help himself and shouted that Yuzhou School would never give up. Not this year, not this year, not next year. Never. The master of the Lizhu School immediately guessed that this person was Tianling and said that it wouldn't be long before it became clear what he was capable of. He was pleased that Tianling had fallen for their hook, the entrance to the beast zone. Schoolmaster Lizhu said that they were ready to start as long as Master Wu Yan didn't object. The time limit is 1 day. The winner will be the one who brings the most animals in that time. After which, he announced the start, and Tianlin and his Lizhu disciple immediately rushed into the restricted area. The Lizhou disciple told Tianlin that he didn't have a chance, to which he replied that they would see about it. Wu Dan asked if Wu Yan thought that the Lizhu disciple was rather suspicious, to which Wu Yan immediately agreed, and admitted that she was confident that Tianling could handle any surprises. After entering the beast zone, Tianling immediately said that he would go to the left, and the Lizhu disciple would go to the right, to which the latter agreed, and starting to tie up his hair said, as if to say, Tianling's road can only lead to the afterlife. Immediately after, the Lizhou disciple attacked Tianling with flames. After dodging, Tianlin asked what he was doing, to which the Lizhu student replied that he would kill the werewolf brat. And after Tianling's death, the Yuzhou school would be razed to the ground for covering up for him for so many years. The Lizhu disciple then began to summon the flaming colossus, shouting that he would send Tianling to hell and the last hope of the werewolf race would go there with him. Tianling wondered how on earth the Lizhu school had managed to find out about him, and what was even going on here. Disciple Lizhu assumed that Tianling was wondering who had given him away, whereupon he said that person was also here. Suddenly, Tianlin was approached by nearby Master Lu. He said that the very day Tianling had leveled his reputation, and when he had defeated Ducheng, that day he had realized that Tianling was not human. Master Lu told Tianling that he had deprived him of his favorite disciple and destroyed his daughter's reputation, after which he shouted that a beast brat like Tianling deserved to die and immediately attacked him. Tianling was stunned by the treachery of the master and his collusion with the Lizhu school. After all, this was low even for him. Tianling avoided the attack with a hydro transformation and immediately began to flee. Master Lu asked Tianling who he thought he was and immediately caught up with him from behind. Master Lu asked Tianling if he thought he would be able to escape from him. Tianling blocked the master's attack with his fire blade. After that, Master Lu recognized that Tianling was really gifted since he was able to hold back the pressure of his blade. But it wouldn't last long because Tianling would die today. Barely restraining Master Lu, Tianling told him that his daughter and Ducheng had only themselves to blame for what had happened. He asked why the master hated him so much. After all, he had been his disciple for so many years. Master Lu recognized that this was an excellent question, for he had been reluctant to take Tianling as his disciple from the beginning, after which he revealed that the headmaster had brought Tianling to him, and she motivated this act by saying that he had experience with orphans. At that time, he believed her. But now he realized that she had given him Tianling for another reason. It was a curse to have a werewolf child as an apprentice. No one else was willing to take Tianling in, and Tianling was most likely the cause of his parents' death. After all, Tianling is cursed by the heavens themselves. Master Lu told him that Tianling's parents died because he was cursed. No one wanted to play with him because he was cursed. Anyone who would play with Tianling would also be cursed and die. Tianling remembered how, as a child, bullies had stoned him while he told them that he wasn't cursed. At that moment, his body was covered in blue and red scales, whereupon he lunged at the offenders, shouting that he was not cursed. As soon as Tianlin remembered this, his body was covered in scales, whereupon he shouted that he wasn't cursed and immediately attacked Master Lu. Master Lu was terrified, for the same devilish power had reawakened in Tianlin as during the fight with Ducheng. Tianling replied to the master that he himself was cursed, for he himself had cursed his disciple and daughter. He was the one who ruined Ducheng and his daughter with his own hands, and today he will die just like them. Not intending to listen to Tianling any further, Master Lu rushed at the one shouting that Tianling was underestimating him too much. But the very next instant he was chopped up by his former student. Looking at his bottom and vomiting blood, Master Lu asked how such a thing could be possible. After finishing with the former master, Tianling told the Lizhu disciple that it was his turn, throwing him into a panic. Immediately afterward, the Lizhu disciple began to run away, shouting to himself that the kid he had been sent after was a devil, for even Master Lu was unable to resist him. Looking back at the danger, he decided that once he got out of here, he would tell everyone about who Tianling really was. Tianling realized that the Yuzhou disciple was trying to escape to warn everyone, so he rushed over to the dreaming disciple and shouted at him that he would not get out. Suddenly, a dragon with a red card flew up to Tianling and started shouting into a mouthpiece so that Tianling would wake up and not let the dark force take over his mind. Otherwise, he would be under its control forever. But Tianling ignored the dragon's advice and slashed at it with his fireblade, while shredding a red card and a dragon mouthpiece, and at the same time some huge mountains in the distance. The dragon urged Tianling to awaken, then covered his paws with black and white energy and rushed towards Tianling, shouting that otherwise Tianling would be crushed to pieces. Hitting Tianling, he sent him straight to the ground. After that, the dragon flew up to him and explained that calling out to such powers would leave its imprint on his mind. And if Tianling didn't tame the tree dragon soon, he would stop developing. The dragon decided that he should be more diligent next time, lest Tianling fall into the same unconscious trance. On the other hand, this was the only reason why he was able to survive. After a while, Tianling woke up abruptly and immediately wondered what had happened to him. Afterward, he stood up and noticed that his body hurt incredibly badly. The dragon told Tianling that nothing had happened to him, except that he had stirred his head for a few minutes ago. After that, he threw him the reward for the book depository task, a shard of dragon scales. Tianling asked what he should do with this shard, as suddenly a spiritual thread was pulled from the shard. Tianling asked the dragon if the shard was trying to show him the way and where it led. The dragon replied that Tianling could have already guessed that it was the path to the next dragon. Meanwhile, Lizhu's apprentice has reached the exit of the secret area. He is already anticipating how everyone will find out about the werewolf, after which Chief Master Yuzhou will have to answer for hiding the descendant of werewolves. He smirked at the thought that after so many years of humiliation from Yuzhou School, Lizhu School's reputation would be restored. Just as suddenly, he was noticed by Master Wu Yan, who immediately asked where Tianling was and why he was here alone. The Lizhu disciple told Master Wu Yan that she had probably known all along that Tianling was a surviving descendant of the werewolf, and since she was covering for him, she must answer for her crimes. He said that he would report it to his master right now, as he would find a way to deal with her. Hearing this, Wu Yan wasn't too surprised, but a moment later, the Lizhu disciple was surrounded by many ice spikes. Wu Yan confessed that he didn't even think about the fact that he was able to report this to the master, immediately after which the disciple was pierced by the thorns. Immediately after, Master Lizhu rushed at Wu Yan to avenge her for killing his disciple, but Wu Yan immediately attacked him as well, shouting that he had left her no other option. Tianling pondered the fact that he would meet a third dragon soon enough. He asked the dragon what the third dragon would be like, since his first two dragons had such different personalities. To which the dragon replied that she was very soft and gentle, but she had one oddity. After a while, they reached a huge tree with a tree dragon wrapped around it. Tianling asked the dragon what he had to do, to which the dragon replied that Tianling should get close and look around, and use a shard of scales to awaken her. Tianling thought it was too simple after all. It was completely different before. Plus, once he woke up, the dragon had been pressuring him the whole way to tame the third dragon as soon as possible, and so he asked what it all meant. Not intending to give an answer, the dragon kicked Tianling and ordered him to seek the answers himself, as he was not his babysitter. Without being able to stop because of such a strong dragon strike, Tianling ran up the roots of the tree because of the momentum. Then he asked the dragon if he could make it easier. Just as suddenly, Tianling felt a strange odor. It was as if he smelled something raw. He then looked up and saw that he was being attacked by a huge snake. Tianling immediately summoned the flaming sword, telling the snake that it had chosen the wrong opponent. Tianling swung his sword to cut off the snake's head, but it managed to dodge, after which he slashed at the snake's head, but unfortunately failed to cut through it. The snake's skin was too tough, and since he can't cut through it, he must find some weak spot. Immediately afterward, he turned his hand into water and pierced the eye of the snake. Just as he thought, the snake's eye proved to be its weak point. Just as suddenly, the snake started to curl around Tianling, causing Tianling to ask why she didn't leave him behind. After all, he could deprive her of her second eye as well. The snake was not going to retreat from the person who had harmed it, and so it attacked Tianlin again, but he dodged its head and pierced the other eye. Afterward, he yelled that he warned her, but she decided to attack anyway. Just as suddenly, the snake swung its head backwards, throwing Tianling away. Immediately afterwards, she attacked him with 2 jets of poison. Tianling said that it couldn't be taken so easily and avoided the damage with a hydro transformation, after which the snake turned to the tree, and Tianling asked what it was planning to do, as suddenly he realized that the snake was going to destroy the tree along with his dragon, and so he immediately rushed to save the dragon. The snake released another portion of venom into the tree, but Tianling arrived in time and managed to cover the tree with his back. Without hydro transformation, he received all the damage from the poison, and that poison immediately began to corrode his body. The tree dragon wondered if the human had taken this attack to protect her. Tianling fell down to the roots and cried out in pain. He realized from the sensation that he couldn't take the sword in his hand anymore, and wondered where the dragon was now. He then shouted to the tree dragon that he was her new master, and that he would immediately urge her to show herself immediately. The dragon cried out that for a dragon, a new master is like spring for a dry tree, and he too called out to the tree dragon. But all they heard was the crunch of branches on a tree. The dragon rushed to Tianling's rescue, shouting for him to hold on, to which Tianling replied that it was easy for him to say that, as the dragon would not be in the serpent's mouth now. Just as suddenly, a huge vine rose up from the tree, saving Tianling from the fate of being eaten by a snake. The tree dragon shouted to the snake not to touch its master, and pinned the snake to the ground. Tianling slipped out of the vine, shouting that he was about to help the dragon, and used the hydro transformation to turn his hand into a drill, with which he easily penetrated the head of the snake. Suddenly, due to his injuries and overexertion, Tianlin's eyes darkened abruptly and he passed out. After a while, Tianling began to perch, and he immediately saw an unfamiliar girl in front of him. The girl was glad to see Tianling regaining consciousness, after which Tianling asked who she was, to which the girl replied that she was his tree dragon, whereupon her horns appeared and her real body appeared behind her. Tianling was surprised at how different she was from the other dragons, and she thanked her master for his help, to which Tianling replied that by saving her, he was only saving himself. She said that Joji was very grateful to her new master, and that from today, Joji would belong to him completely. Tianling could already feel a third spiritual core starting to appear in him, which meant that Joji would be in charge of the element of wood, but there was only one thing that wasn't clear yet. Tianling asked what martial technique he would get from her, to which she replied that Joji did not possess any martial techniques. Tianling admitted that he thought that everyone had fighting techniques. After that, he wondered why he needed a dragon without martial techniques. Jieji had given him a hydro transformation, and from Xiaofeng, he got a fire sword, while the new one might be completely useless. Suddenly, he noticed that his hand was as good as new and asked how it happened, to which Joji replied that Joji's specialty was the ability to heal, and that was something she could give to her master. Just now, he was injured, and therefore just as suddenly, Tianling realized that his back was perfectly fine and asked how it happened, to which Joji replied that as long as her master's soul was not destroyed, he could not worry about the safety of his body. Joji can heal any bodily wounds. Tianling was happy to have such a useful ability, because thanks to it, he could no longer fear for himself. But Joji interrupted him, saying that she had a request for him. Tianling agreed to listen to her, but at the same time he had a strange premonition. Suddenly, Joji asked the master to have sexual intercourse with her. Shocked by what he heard, Tianling asked what she meant, after which Joji bowed and told her that Tianling's soul had been damaged even before meeting her, and that Joji would not be able to fully heal her master's body as long as his soul was unhealed, whereas with coitus, both body and soul could be healed at the same time. Joji recognized that she wished to fully restore the master. Tianling's mind gave a slack, as this was the first time he had seen a girl insist on such a thing out of a sense of duty. He wondered what he should do now. Suddenly, Joji grabbed Tianling's hands and apologized for her insistence. She told him that the master's soul was too badly damaged, and if the coitus didn't start right away, the soul might stay in that state forever. Trying to resist, Tianling asked her not to do so, but Joji kissed him on the lips, after which Joji's shell began to dissipate, while Tianling's soul and body were completely healed. Before Tianling could realize what was happening, Joji scattered, trying to say something to him one last time. Seeing this, Tianling fell to his knees in horror and called out to her. Just as suddenly, he felt someone's presence behind him and immediately asked who it was. The tree dragon asked him to stay away, since it was her. After that, Joji told him that she had used up too much energy during her coitus with him, so she could no longer maintain her human form, and she didn't want him to see her like this. Tianling became slightly uncomfortable, and he asked if she was calling what had just happened coitus, to which Juji replied that she did, and that she had been taught this by her sister Jie. Tianling was angry after realizing that this was the kind of way Jie was trying to play a trick on him. After that, he smiled and held out his hands and said that he didn't care what she looked like, but he was grateful for her healing. The wooden dragon's blush bloomed because of what he heard. The dragoness sheltering behind the tree additionally closed herself with her tail and asked her master not to approach her, for now she was in such a form. And now Tianling touched her head and said that right now she was very beautiful. At this moment, Joji realized how good her master was. On the night of the same day, Tianling told Joji that he had dreamed of riding a dragon for a long time, and his dream had finally come true. Joji admitted that she was glad that he was glad. She then asked where exactly they were going, or if they were just floating in the air, to which Tianling replied that he needed to return to school. The representatives of the Lizhou school had colluded with Master Lu. Therefore, he was sure that they were not planning to accept defeat and just go back. But flying to the school, he was horrified, for the Yuzhou school was now all on fire. Seeing the chaos going on in the streets, Tianling ordered Joji to hide in it so that she would not be discovered. As he looked for survivors, he thought about what was wrong with the masters, apprentices, and where Master Wu Dan was now. As he ran past one of the buildings, he didn't notice that there was someone inside. Just as suddenly, an unknown person grabbed Tianlin and dragged him inside the building. Right after that, he asked Tianling to calm down. Seeing Master Wu, Tianling asked about what had happened in the school. After that, he said that he had been in the secret place for half a day and was greatly shocked to see that their school had turned into a burning ruin. As he suddenly noticed something strange, Tianling asked the master where his hand had gone. Wu Dan replied that it didn't matter now and told Tianling that he should leave this place as soon as possible and never come back again. He ordered Tianling to look for Wu Yan's senior apprentice. Afterwards, Wu Dan said that the 5 schools of the southwest had united against them. They thought that only Lizhou school had attacked them, but they had persuaded the others to join them. It was because someone betrayed their school from the inside. Tianling said that he knew about the traitor because it was Master Lu. Then he asked where Wu Yan's mentor was since they have to rescue her. Wu Dan said that that traitor was not Master Lu. After all, it all started much earlier. Yuzhou school is set up in such a way that it is easy to defend and difficult to attack. And so, someone spent many years studying the weaknesses of their school and made a detailed map for the school's enemies. Wu Dan said that Mentor Wu Yan was currently protecting the main hall, and that Tianling had already wasted too much time talking to him, and should therefore flee now. Tianling said he had to save his mentor, and Wu Dan warned him not to open the door, but it was already too late. After all, there was a big guy outside the door who was surprised that there were survivors here and decided to finish them off. But Tianling didn't give his opponent a chance either, piercing him with his flaming sword. Afterward, he said that he would save the mentor, and promised that he would save Wu Dan afterward as well. Wu Dan smirked, thinking about how stupid Tianling was as a boy, because unfortunately, he obviously won't be able to live to see that moment. Tianling rushed towards the main hall while dealing with the oncoming enemies. After reaching the main hall, Tianling heard the unknown men demanding that Yu Yan give them the werewolf descendant, and they would probably spare her, otherwise they would find and kill him themselves. The master of Lizhou school told Master Wu that the 5 schools of the southwest had only one requirement. The werewolf brat must die. But if she continued to resist, they would not only cut her body into pieces, but also curse her soul forever. So he again advised her to think it over carefully. To which Wu Yan replied that they could only be so bold in a crowd. Then she smirked and asked which of them had the guts to fight her one-on-one. The master of the Lizhou school asked if she still thought she was above them all. He then attacked her with flames, shouting that she had a chance to not bring it to this, but now only death awaited her. Suddenly, Tianlin jumped out in front of him, and blocking his attack, he said that they would have to deal with him first. Wu Yan was shocked to see Tianling and asked him what he was here for, then ordered him to get out of here. Tianling asked how he could leave the school at such a difficult time. But Wu Yan continued to insist, saying that the masters of the 5 schools didn't know that Tianling was a descendant of werewolves, and she killed the boy who told her before he could tell anyone about it. She warned Tianling that she would soon distract the masters, which he should use to escape, and ordered him not to argue with her. The master of the Liju school said that it was quite a touching sight, seeing a disciple save his mentor, and he admitted that he didn't even regret the fact that he didn't hit with his full strength, as he might have accidentally hit the boy. In fact, he was glad for the good fortune, because he would be able to kill Wu Yan's disciple to avenge his disciple's murder. The master of Liju's school offered Tianling a deal. If Tianling could withstand his blow, he would spare mentor Wu Yan. Tianling immediately summoned the fire sword, and after preparing himself, said that he was ready for it. But Wu Yan pulled his clothes and warned him that this is a trap. Besides, Tianlin has no chance of withstanding this hold, and Master Liju knows this. She revealed that the latter actually wants to kill Tianlin, to which Tianling replied that he knew that. But as he had said before, Yuzhou school will never give up. The master of the Liju school praised Tianling for his courage and shouted that his death would serve as an excellent compensation for his disciple. He then threw 2 fireballs, shouting that his mentor was covering the werewolf brat, and since Tianling was covering her, he also deserved to die. Master Wu Yan threw Tianlin behind her back and said that this was her battle, not his. Immediately after that, she sheltered herself and Tianlin from the attack by creating an ice wall. Wu Xin ordered Tianlin to leave now, and lastly, she only asked for one thing. She asked him to memorize the faces of those 5, after which she restrained Tianling with ice and told him that he should only take revenge when the time was right and he was strong. Immediately after, she threw Tianlin out of the building and ordered Bai Feng to keep an eye on him. Lastly, Wu Yan said that she was satisfied with the life she had lived, for she had 5 beautiful disciples. Bai Feng covered Tianling's mouth and told the one that the mentor was capable of standing up for herself, while the 2 of them were only distracting her. Suddenly, there was an explosion that destroyed the main hall of Yuzhou High School. Tianling realized that all of this only happened because he wasn't strong enough. Hence, he decided that he had to become as strong as possible. Master Liju shouted to the other masters to stop Wu Yan's soul from scattering, as they can't let it get away from them. Immediately after which, the chief master of Chengzhou School, Cheng Tian, flew up into the sky. Cheng Tian flew towards Tianling with Bai Feng shouting that the heavens belong to the celestials, and the underworld belonged to the humans, while the rest of us didn't belong here. Immediately after, he started attacking them with lightning bolts. As Bai Feng ran away, he wondered why that master couldn't get away from them, and then they jumped into the water. Seeing this, Master Cheng Tian thought they were fools since those 2 dared to escape death by hiding in the water. As suddenly surrounded by water, Bai Feng walked up to Master Cheng Tian and attacked him using the black vortex. Cheng Tian thought it was a joke and asked if Bai Feng hoped that he could surprise him, the chief master of Chengzhou School, with such childish tricks. Immediately after which, Bai Feng used the breath of fire, releasing a huge jet of fire. Bai Feng asked not to underestimate him. After all, he was a disciple of the strongest master in the southwest, and this was his death blow. Cheng Tian suddenly jumped out of the smoke, and grabbing Bai Feng by the throat, he said that he had played around enough. But Bai Feng turned to his grandfather and reminded him that he had forgotten about someone. Immediately after which, Tianling pierced Cheng Tian with a flaming sword. Cheng Tian whined out in surprise, but after a moment, he realized that Tianling was that werewolf. But Tianling ordered Cheng Tian to die and chopped him into pieces. As Cheng Tian suddenly began to dissipate, Bai Feng bellowed as this was just an incarnation. After which, he told Tianlin that if Cheng Tian had personally appeared after them, they would already be dead. No matter how they were still too weak to stand up to the Grand Masters. Right now, the most important thing for them was to reunite with their elder, to which Tianling replied that he should go back and rescue the mentor. But he couldn't return as Bai Feng knocked him out with a kick to the head. As he carried Tianling away, he hoped that this hammer was able to knock such thoughts out of Tianling. They would only return to this conversation when he was stronger. The students of the 5 schools chased Qin Yun away, complaining about how ungrateful she was, and didn't appreciate their good treatment at all. A student asked her to realize that Yuzhou school was over, and offered to let her live if she obeyed. But Qin Yun snapped back, saying either they would kill her or else she would kill them. Immediately after that, she used the stabbing moon. But the disciple exhaled smoke with ease, blocking Qin Yun's attack. Qin Yun realized that she didn't stand a chance anymore, as her rod was depleted and she didn't have the strength for even a single strike. After which she collapsed to the ground due to powerlessness. The disciples lifted her off the ground, after which the big man asked what she was good for in this state. After which he replied that she could only be good for one thing. He told her to relax and try to enjoy herself. Suddenly, a shout of, "Yuzhou disciples never give up," was heard. And then a hammer fell on the big guy's head, rendering him unconscious. The remaining students looked up into the sky, wondering who they were, to which Baifeng and Tianlin replied that they were heaven punishers and immediately attacked the disciples. Tianling was surprised that even such a badass could do something, to which Baifeng replied that the enemies had selected the best of the students to attack their school, and because of that, they could do something. Qinyun thanked her fellow students for saving her and asked what was going on in their sub-school right now, to which Tianling replied that it had already been breached. The three of them were probably the only ones who had survived. Leaning on her sword, Qinyun vowed that she would definitely avenge her mentor. Tianling and Baifeng were dumbfounded upon hearing that Master Heilian had also been hit in the same way. A recent scene flashed in Qinyun's mind where her mentor, surrounded by enemies, ordered her to flee, after which tears flowed from Qinyun's eyes, and she revealed that in order for her to have a chance to leave, her mentor had sacrificed herself. After which she admitted that when she met the two of them, she had hoped to hear that the mentor had been able to fight back. Tianling told Qinyun that now was not the time to grieve, and that they should hurry. After all, the enemies would surely send a search party after them. After which, Tianling put Qinyun on his back and ran with Baifeng away from the Yuzhou school. Baifeng said that the elder had once mentioned that she wanted to gain experience somewhere in the west, which meant that was where they should start their search. After a while, Yuzhou School Square. Master Li Zhou couldn't be happy that the famed Wu Yan was in his hands. The headmaster of Taizhou School, Taimei, asked Master Li if he was trying to single-handedly take the fruits of their common operation. After all, Wu Yan's soul must be interrogated in the presence of the masters of the 5 schools. After all, their main goal was to catch the werewolf brat. Just as suddenly, a blinding lightning strike struck near them. As soon as the lightning dissipated, they saw the injured Master Chong Tian. Unhappy with his loss, for those disciples were actually in his hands. Master Caillou assumed that Chong Tian was already too old and had lost his grip since he was unable to catch a couple of disciples, and offered to catch a couple of his men. As a flute suddenly flew beside him, Master Shuiyun advised him not to waste such valuable resources on such trifles, and said that he could handle such a thing himself, after which he jumped on the flute and added that they were only children. Master Chongtian mentally mocked Shuiyun for thinking that it was so easy to deal with those children, so he wanted to see if he could return in one piece. After all, if they were able to deal with his incarnation, then they were not so simple. Flying away from the other masters, Master Shuiyun wondered why he would chase fish from the nets. After all, he was already in Yuzhou, and he could pick a couple of flowers before he left. After a while, Tianling and the boys reached a mountain village, and Baifeng suggested that they take a break there. Tianling knocked on the door of one of the houses and asked if anyone was home, whereupon the girl opened the door and asked who they were. Tianling wanted to say that they were from Yuzhou school, but remembering that they were being chased to exterminate them, he said that they were just passing by, but their friend had gotten sick and needed to rest. Hearing that someone was unwell, Granny agreed to let them in, after which she tended to Qin Yun's wounds and asked what they had gotten themselves into. As their friend had been pretty badly injured, she suggested that they stop running around the mountains and rest instead. The only problem is that they have no time to rest, because Tianling has brought trouble to the school, and if it wasn't for him, maybe their school wouldn't have been attacked and everyone would be fine now. Suddenly, someone demanded that all the families from all the yards who had daughters should go outside. The people on the street immediately began to panic. Because their village is going to be visited by a great saint, they are very unlucky. The girl began to panic because of this, and the grandmother complained about another saint, because similar ones come to them every month, because of which there will soon be no children left in the village. Tianling asked the old woman what kind of saints were visiting them, to which she replied that they were just ordinary saints, who were cultivating in their schools. They were constantly coming to them and taking people away. The old woman hid Xiaojun in the closet and ordered her not to come out under any circumstances. She then asked the guests to sit down and keep their heads down, because if they were quiet, they would probably be fine. Tianling looked at Baifeng, but the latter asked Tianling not to look at him like that. He then explained that the masters of the different schools were constantly shaking the common people, and Tianling doesn't know about it since he never got out of school. And if Tianling doesn't want someone to shake him like that, then he must be stronger than the others. Tianling was disappointed in cultivators. After all, he had always thought that great cultivators were close to saints. But, as it turns out, they regularly bully defenseless commoners. Schoolmasters attack not only other schools, but also villages. Suddenly, a dragon appeared and offered to give Tianlin a task, since such injustice awakens his anger. The dragon gave him a level B assignment, to chase away a rapist who had come to the village, and the reward was a prize from the treasury of the system. Hearing about the difficulty of the task, Tianling tried not to spill the tea because of his trembling hands, as he had never had a task with such a high level before. Noticing this, Baifeng asked Tianling what was wrong with him and if he was shaking because the tea was too hot. The dragon explained to Tianlin that the assignment had a B level, as the current opponent was stronger than all the previous ones. Tianling decided that he couldn't help but intervene in what was happening. After all, the grandmother from this village had generously sheltered them, and even without that, he wouldn't be able to restrain himself. Seeing Tianling walking towards the door, Baifeng asked where he was going. Looking out through the gap, Tianling saw the villagers worshipping the cultivator who flew in on a flute. Baifeng asked Tianling who he saw there. He started shaking, but only upon seeing Shui Yun did he jump out of the house, asking how he even dared to come here. Zhuowen immediately recognized Baifeng and said that he knew how easy it would be to lure him out. Baifeng promised that this scum would pay for his crimes today and that he would kill him. Baifeng attacked Shui Yun with a whirlwind of lightning, but Shui Yun easily blocked his opponent's attack, after which he admitted that he had long heard that although he had a single rod, he could still use dozens of techniques. Therefore, he was forced to admit that Baifeng's fame was fully deserved. The villagers panicked because of the all-destroying fight of the saints and began to scatter to survive. Just as suddenly, one of the lightning bolts flew towards the old lady who had sheltered Baifeng and company. Baifeng realized his blunder and tried to defend the old lady, but Shui Yun created a barrier around Baifeng and asked what he would do now. Just as suddenly, Tianling saved the old lady by covering her with a hydro transformation, after which Tianling helped the old lady up and asked her to leave as Shui Yun suddenly created a barrier above them. Shui Yun felt that there was some wench hiding in one of the houses, which meant that he would finally be able to pour out the passion that had accumulated in him. Tianling was enraged over this scum and ordered him to fight him if he represented anything. Just as suddenly, the dragon's voice sounded in Tianlin's head. The dragon said that there was a way to break down these walls and asked if Tianlin wanted to learn how to do it. Immediately after which, the dragon pulled out Tianlin's mind and threw her into the portal, where Tianlin was already waiting for the dragons. Jieji explained that the walls of the trap were made of sound waves and that there was a way to destroy them. She told me that if you combine fire and water in the right way, you can destroy anything. After which, Xiaofeng added that if you combine one rod with another, you would get a third rod. Tianling was struck by an epiphany, immediately after which he shrieked sharply. The new rod would be able to destroy anything. He then created water with fire, reasoning to himself about what the girls wanted to tell him, and eventually he decided to try and combine both elements at Granny's house. Shui Yun sealed Qin Yun, after which he said that he was lucky today, because this girl turned out to be very pretty. Xiaojun couldn't let the saint take her guest, hence she quietly took a chair and swung it at the saint. But as it turned out, she wasn't strong enough for her blow to penetrate this saint. Shuowen explained to the girl that hitting people was not good and suggested that she play instead. The girl started running away from the saint, calling for help, but the man tied her up with an audible string and asked if she was just going to hit him with a chair and run away, whereupon he explained that she wasn't in the story. Shuowen suspended the girl over the door, and she began to beg for him to let her go, but Zeyun touched her face and said that he couldn't let her go so easily since they hadn't played yet. He then asked what would happen if he had fun with her in front of the whole village, and how would her life be like afterwards. The grandmother began to beg the great saint to spare the girl, for she was still a child. Suyun asked what would happen if he didn't let her go. Tianling, who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, shouted that he would break his head then and punched Shui Yun. Baifeng was pleased that Tianling got out and started cheering for him. Tianling pulled the girl down and told her to run to her grandmother as soon as possible and hide somewhere. Just as suddenly, Tianling felt an impending attack from behind him. Immediately after, Tianlin blocked Shuiyun's attack, and Shuiyun shouted that they didn't belong to Tianlin so he could let them go so easily. Shuiyun admitted that he had not expected that a destructive rod could lurk within such a person. Even so, Tianling had managed to deal with one of his moves, nothing more. After which, Shuiyun asked whether Tianling had figured out how to dissolve his sound cube by himself, or whether someone had helped him. Tianling shouted that it was none of his business, and released 2 destructive waves at Shuiyun. But Shuiyun dodged the attack, and said that Tianling had not taken into account that he might have other trump cards up his sleeve. He then started playing the flute using sound cloning. Tianling asked if Xue Yun could control all these clones at once, to which Xue Yanyi replied that it wasn't even all he could do. After which, all of Xue Yuni started summoning supersonic by playing flutes. Because of the supersonic blast, the walls began to crumble, the ceiling collapsed, and people couldn't even move because of the pain. Tianling began to think about what he could do. Neither he nor Qingyun would be able to last long like this. Shuiyun asked Tianlin if he remembered what he had shouted out recently, namely, "If you're any good, fight me." Tianling channeled the power of destruction into the ground, wanting to finish off Shuiyun right now. Immediately after that, destruction pierced through one of Shuiyun's clones, who started laughing. After that, Shuiyun asked how Tianling would kill him since he didn't even know which one was the real one. And Tianling agreed that he really didn't know that. And since that's the case, he'll just kill them all, shouted Tianling, while simultaneously attacking in all directions. The power of destruction instantly pierced through all the clones, after which they disappeared. And there was only one Shuiyun left in the room. Tianling attacked Shuiyun by creating a drill, but as it turned out, this Shuiyun was also a clone. Immediately after, he saw that Shuiyun was trying to escape, taking Qinyun with him. As Shuiyun ran away, he swore that he would get even with Tianling. Tianling was too hard on him, so he grabbed the girl so that Tianling would have to chase after him. Shuiyun flew into the sky and started to run away through the air, but Tianyun shouted that he wouldn't let him get away so easily. To which Shuiyun replied that Tianling would die if he chased after him and twitched his fingers. Immediately after which, Tianlin dodged the flute that suddenly flew out, which immediately flew to its master. Shuiyun scoffed at Tianlin, shouting to the one that he wasn't just talking about how he wouldn't catch up to him. Tianling reprimanded the fleeing Shuiyun as Xiaofeng suddenly said that they would be able to catch up with him. After that, a flash followed. The villagers were shocked, for they had seen a fire dragon, which meant that that guy was indeed a saint. One of the villagers shouted that they should kneel down and not even raise their heads in the presence of the dragon. Feeling that something was wrong, Shuiyun turned around, but as soon as he saw what was there, he almost dropped his eyes. He was shocked to see the dragon and wanted to know how that little brat had gotten a real fire dragon. But after a moment, he realized what was wrong. He realized that Tianling was a descendant of werewolves, and that was the reason why Wu Yan was so protective of him. Shuiyun dropped Qinyun and shouted to Tianling that if he didn't save his girlfriend, she would crash. Xiaofeng said that they should catch up with Shuyun, but Tianling refused to leave Qinyun behind. Immediately after which, he jumped off Xiaofeng's head, saying that he had to save Qinyun. After getting rid of the tail, Shuiyun was horrified that the rod of destruction was still acting on him. After bandaging his head, he said that if he couldn't solve this problem quickly, he would be left without a face. Besides, he did not know what kind of wound he had on his back. Suddenly, the fire dragon yelled out that the wound on its back was simply enormous. Shuiyun was terrified that the dragon had caught up with him, plus, it could also speak. But in the next instant, Xiaofeng exhaled a jet of flame at him, leaving no ashes from Shuiyun. Meanwhile, Tianling was trying to figure out if Qinyun had any chance of surviving. After all, she was already badly injured, and now the consequences of that freak's antics were added to it. Gigi said that she could survive, but only with Tianling's help. After that, she asked if he had forgotten what he had gotten from the tree dragon. She said that Tianling only needed to give Qinyun some blood, after which she would be able to heal. Tianling immediately took out a knife and cut his finger-dripping blood into Qinyun's mouth. Jieji said that after something like this, Qinyun's heart should be beating soon. Just as suddenly, Qinyun started gasping for breath, and her body was covered in black veins. Tianling asked what was happening to her. Just as suddenly, Qinyun flew up into the air, and thick black smoke began to emanate from her body. Jieji explained that Qinyun was actually from the werewolf race as well. Although she wasn't a dragon, but Tianling's blood had awakened her hidden essence. Tianling asked who Qinyun was, to which Jieji replied that she was the last descendant of the extinct horned snakes. In ancient times, these snakes were the main enemies of dragons. A few seconds later, the area was already completely covered in impenetrable black smoke. Suddenly, Qinyun turned into a huge snake and attacked Tianlin. Only Tianling was about to fight back as Xiaofeng fell from the sky to the ground, crushing Qinyun to the ground. After that, Jieji pushed Tianling towards Qinyun and said that he could subdue her. After all, if he really wanted to change the existing principles of the universe, he needed the support of all the werewolves. The dragon raised Tianling's hand, after which a seal appeared on it, and said that Tianling only needed to touch Qinyun's forehead with the seal, and she would be subjected to him. Realizing that he had no other choice, Tianling agreed with the dragoness, and jumping to Qinyun shouted that he needed her. He needed her strength and support. Therefore, he ordered her to wake up. Immediately afterward, he touched the seal to her forehead. And in just a moment, Qin had regained her human form. Tianling wondered if everything was already ready. Suddenly, tears spilled out of Qin eyes. She was saddened by the fact that she was a werewolf descendant and not a human as she had always thought. Tianling told her that it was no big deal, because he was also a descendant of werewolves, and he was as surprised as she was when he found out. He wasn't even a purebred werewolf, but the child of a werewolf and a human, especially since, as he had recently found out, many cultivators hurt commoners, which meant there was less human in them than he and her. He told her that it didn't matter so much who their ancestor was, because if they continued to stand on the side of goodness and justice, then they would remain human. Qin asked if he would try to tell her that a person was not defined by their background, but by their actions, to which Tianling replied, "She is right. It was their job to get the message across to the others as well." Tianling extended his hand to her and admitted that he didn't want werewolves to be considered an inferior race and live a miserable existence. He was in favor of werewolves being on the same level as humans again. Tianling saw that as someone for whom the world had turned upside down, Qin was holding up quite well. Qin agreed to help Tianlin in his mission and took his hand. Qin noticed that her wounds were almost healed and said that she owed him an unpayable debt. Just as suddenly, Qin began to undress, shocking Tianlin with this. But as it turned out, she only wanted to look at Tianling's seal, which made her assume that she now belonged to him. Just as suddenly, a dragon appeared and told Qin that she was right. Qin asked the dragon who he was, which made Tianling surprised that she could see him. The dragon asked Tianling why he was so surprised. After all, Qin belonged to him now, and if at any point she betrayed him, the seal on her shoulder would take her life. Immediately after which, Qin loudly swore that she would never betray him, and that she was willing to sacrifice her life for his mission. Just as suddenly, the dragon knocked out Tianlin with a hammer and carried his mind into a portal. The dragon asked Qin to wait while he held a conversation with their mutual friend. Tianling asked the dragon why he had brought him here again, to which the dragon replied that he had something to tell him, after which the three girls handed Tianlin a scroll, saying that it was the master's reward for completing the task. Looking at the scroll, Tianling was surprised, as it indicated a double reward. Tianling took the reward and tried to understand what it was. Tianling asked the dragon if they were just another dragon eggs, to which the dragon replied that they were something like winning tickets for the lottery. The dragon then took out a yellow and white ball from his chest and threw it, ordering the automaton to appear. Suddenly, a huge silhouette began to emerge from under the water. Shocked by what he saw, Tianling asked what the heck this was all about. I mean, it's like some kind of kindergarten. The dragon hit Tianling on the head with the hammer and ordered Tianling not to grumble, because he had been carrying around the machine for a reason. After that, he ordered Tianlin to start playing if he didn't want to get hit again. Tianling brought the red orb to the automaton, thinking that it was unlikely to contain anything more valuable than a plush dragon, and that it would be better if he was given some kind of technique for completing the task. Seeing Tianling's hesitation, the dragon raised his hammer and asked how long he would still be thinking. After that, Tianlin inserted the sphere into the machine, and a turtle, banana, glasses, and underpants started spinning on the scoreboard, proving to Tianlin that he wouldn't get anything valuable here. Just as suddenly, the scoreboard stopped at 3 golden swords, after which, a golden sword appeared from the automaton, and the dragon fired a clapper and congratulated Tianlin for obtaining the ritual sword. Tianling asked why he needed this ritual sword. After all, he had no use for it, and it would be better to get a battle sword. The dragon lit a cigar and asked Tianlin not to be so dismissive of this sword. After all, this sword once belonged to one of the progenitors who participated in the creation of this world. Tianling said that it was rumored that every ritual item should have a spirit, but this sword didn't have one, so he asked if the dragon was trying to fool him. Suddenly, a voice demanded that ugly Tianling remove his filthy hands from him right now. Tianling asked the voice who he was, and ordered it to appear before him now. The ritual sword said that it ordered Tianling to take his hands off it, but Tianling only squeezed it harder. The sword asked Tianlin if he was completely dumb, and then swung towards his face. Tianling took advantage of the hydro transformation, avoiding the blade of the blade. Then he asked why he was kicking, because he had earned this sword by completing the task, so it should belong to him. The ritual sword spirit suggested that Tianling take it if he was so brave, after which they would see how many times he could impale Tianling. The dragon suggested that the sword spirit didn't quite agree with Tianling and said that he would have to subdue him. But this time, dragon agreed to help Tianlin a little after which he snapped his fingers, and a child appeared on the sword, immediately asking why it was suddenly pulled out. Tianling was surprised that this child was the sword spirit. The sword spirit assumed that Tianling was the one who had released him and attacked him, promising to chop off his head. Tianling used his rods, telling the sword spirit that he needed to be taught a lesson since he was so small and impertinent. The sword spirit smirked, seeing the fire sword being pulled out against him, and shouted to Tianlin that he would not spare him. Immediately after which, the sword spirit summoned a multitude of swords, causing him to fall to the floor. Tianling didn't expect that this little guy was capable of such a thing, which meant that the dragon hadn't deceived him, and this sword was really worthwhile. And since that was the case, he wished to subdue this sword spirit. Joji asked the dragon if it was too early for the master to fight such a strong opponent, and Zeiji asked what would happen if Tianling died now, to which the dragon replied that if Tianling wanted to subdue the golden and earth dragon, he had to become stronger. Besides, he can't die within his own consciousness. Therefore, he was going to keep Tianlin here until he subdued the sword. Joji asked if Tianling's body would die without food if this fight dragged on, to which the dragon replied that this would not happen, and creating a projection of an adult dragon of the 5 elements, he explained that he had slowed down the passage of time inside the mind. Now, 1 year here would equal 1 day outside. After 3 years inside and 3 days outside, Tianling was still fighting with the ceremonial sword spirit. Baifeng asked Qin Yun if Tianling was coming to his senses. She replied that he was still not waking up and he had been like this for 3 days. She thought something had gone wrong. Baifeng was surprised to hear about the 3 days and was glad that he had gotten them in. Otherwise, Tianling would have been dragged away by the wolves while Qin Yun was sleeping. Qin Yun shouted that she had kept her eyes on Tianling all these 3 days, and Baifeng asked her to calm down as he was joking. Just as suddenly, Baifeng and Qin Yun heard a growl echoing around the area, after which Baifeng looked in the direction of the roar and was surprised by what he saw. He wondered where such beasts could have come from here in the first place. Immediately after which, Baifeng used a fire whirlwind, exhaling a sea of fire into the tiger. But in turn, Tiger shot water at Baifeng, then managed to completely level Baifeng's fire whirlwind. Suddenly another tiger appeared, but this time with the rider. The rider said that he had been quite lucky, as he had caught some Yuzhou fish in his net. Baifeng told Kaichi that although the Yuzhou school was in decline now, but he couldn't allow such lowlifes to insult Yuzhou disciples. He then asked if he had forgotten what happened 2 years ago at the Southwest High School tournament. Kaichi took out his whip and reminded him that all of this happened 2 years ago, while he was a completely different person now. After which, he punched one of the tigers and ordered it to tear Baifeng to pieces. Tianling ordered Qin Yun to protect Tianling while he would take on the enemies, after which Baifeng exhaled a cloud of black dust. Kaichi asked the tiger why it hadn't fired yet, after which he assumed that it had been too long since he had beaten the tigers, and hitting both of them, ordered them to attack the Yuzhou disciples. The tigers started shelling the surrounding area, during which Kaichi asked Baifeng where he had gone. Just as suddenly, Baifeng said behind his back, immediately after which he exhaled a sea of flames. Kaichi remained as powerless to him as he had been 2 years ago. Just as suddenly, Kaichi broke through the flames with ice energy, much to Baifeng's surprise. After all, Kaichi must have an icy spiritual core for this technique. Suddenly, he realized that Kaichi was pulling the rods out of his pets. Baifeng admitted that he couldn't even contemplate that the students of the Kaiju school could stoop to such a thing. After all, he's only crippling them that way. Kaichi asked what it would cost him after all. These animals only existed to serve him. As she was leaving the scene of the fight, Qin Yun noticed a sleeping tiger. As she looked at him, she felt sorry for the tigers, as they had chosen the wrong master. As she suddenly heard about how bad they are, the tigers didn't choose Kaichi as their master. Instead, he shackled them with secret spells, which is the reason why they can't leave him. Qin Yun immediately realized that these were the thoughts of the tigers, but she couldn't understand why she was hearing them. Just as suddenly, energy began to emanate from Tianlin, causing Qin Yun to assume that he was preparing to come to his senses. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, gathering ice energy, Kaichi shrieked. Baifeng couldn't even imagine how convenient it was to have 2 extra rods at hand. Baifeng attacked Kaichi using the thunder dagger, but the latter blocked the attack with an ice shield, then laughed at Baifeng's efforts and asked if this was all that the second apprentice of the Yuzhou school's chief master was capable of. After which he rushed towards Baifeng, and his shield broke due to the lightning strikes. Baifeng was forced to admit that Kaichi had indeed become much stronger. Baifeng used a fire blast, but Kaichi managed to block all attacks with ice, after which Kaichi grabbed Baifeng by the neck and, creating a spike, said that today, Baifeng would pay for the humiliation of 2 years ago. Just as suddenly, Qinyun intervened in the fight and broke her spike and demanded that Kaichi get behind Baifeng. Kaichi assumed that Qinyun wished to die first and therefore attacked her with ice spikes. Qinyun panicked as there was no way she could dodge such an attack. But a moment before the impact, Tianling caught a flying ice spike. He then sentenced Sai Ci to death for animal abuse. Kaichi asked Tianling if Tianling was capable of doing anything, because he was clearly no match for someone who was being carried on his back by a girl, to which Tianling replied that they would check it out now. Just as suddenly, Qinyun turned around and started running away, telling Tianlin that he had better not engage Kaichi in open combat, since even Baifeng couldn't handle him. Tianling asked Qinyun to let him go so that he could finish off Kaichi. Suddenly, the escape route was blocked by a wall of ice, after which Kaichi approached them and told them that they wouldn't be able to escape from him so easily. Qinyun told Tianling that only one of them would be able to escape, and so she said that she would delay the enemy while Tianling hid. Qinyun tried to think of a way for her to catch the enemy off guard, since he had no idea of her abilities. After which, she dropped Tianlin, asking him to leave now, and took out her sword from its sheath. Immediately afterwards, she attacked the enemy with a stabbing moon attack. Kaichi was angry as this girl still didn't realize who she had run into, after which he completely blocked Qinyun's attack with an ice wall. And what was the worst part was that Qinyun's sword was stuck in the ice. Just as suddenly, an icy explosion occurred, throwing Qinyun off the wall. After landing on the ground, Qinyun realized that her affairs were really bad, as the frosty air stiffened her body. Caitzi suddenly appeared above her and told her that everything is not as simple as she thinks, because soon the frost will get to her brain, which will turn her into a vegetable. Suddenly, Tianling appeared in front of Kaichi and asked him if Kaichi really wanted to freeze her brain, because in that case, Tianling would unscrew his head. Immediately after which, Tianling kicked Kaichi, punching through several trees with it. Qinyun wondered how Tianling was capable of such a thing after being out for 3 days. After realizing that his legs were fine, Tianling realized that the 3-year battle inside his mind had not been without a trace. After recovering from the blow, Kaichi asked Tianlin how he even dared to lift his foot on him. Immediately after that, he attacked Tianlin to avenge the incident. But Tianling took Qinyun in his arms and easily dodged Kaichi's attack. After sitting her down in a safe place, Qinyun asked that she wait while he took care of business. Qinyun wondered what Tianling was doing. After all, he was many times faster than he was before hibernation. She even came to the conclusion that he was cultivating in his sleep. Tianling then rushed towards Kaichi. He assumed that, judging from the ease with which Kaichi was pulling out the rods, it was not the first time he was doing so, but it would be the last time. Kaichi asked why he thought this was the last time, because today, the tigers would feed on Tianlin and be as good as new. He then attacked Tianlin with ice spikes, but Tianling dodged the ice spikes and suggested that Kaichi take care of business instead of playing games. After which, Tianling bounced off the tree, but this was exactly what Kaichi was waiting for, because in the air, the enemy would not be able to dodge. That meant he had nothing to hide behind from Kaichi's icy needles. Kaichi explained to Tianling that if any of the needles touched him, Tianling's life would be far worse than death. Tianling replied that with this technique, Kaichi would only be able to hunt sparrows, and Jieji agreed. Immediately after that, the needles pierced Tianlin, but he didn't receive any harm as he used hydration. Kaichi almost dropped his eyes due to shock and wondered how Tianling did it. Tianling suggested to Kaichi to test how he would hide from his attack and use the fire rod, after which he formed a myriad of fiery swords that immediately rushed towards Kaichi. In order to defend against this attack, Kaichi used all the strength of his rods. But Kaichi was too weak for Tianling. Qinyun, who was watching the fight, was amazed at how strong Tianling was. Looking at Kaichi's corpse, Tianling said that he would not let his enemies live from now on. After observing the fight, Baifeng assumed that these 3 days, Tianling hadn't just been out, and this could only mean that the mentor was right about Tianling. Qinyun approached the tiger and asked if it could survive. After all, that rascal had used the rods of tigers, bringing them to such a state. After which, she looked around and added that while they were fighting, Baifeng had disappeared. Tianling had told her that nothing would happen to Baifeng. And as for the tigers, they were indeed almost dried to dry, but nothing was lost yet. Tianling reached out to the tiger and used the healing, after which the tiger woke up and thanked Tianlin for saving their lives. Tianling said that they might not thank him, but it would be better if they answered one question. Why do they let people control themselves? to which the tiger replied that it was because of... After which the second tiger continued, he revealed that the kaiju school had gained access to a secret spell. Once they applied the spell on an animal, it would no longer be able to disobey a human. At the moment, every person in the kaiju school had an animal in their charge, and the headmaster of the school was even extending their lives by sucking the life force from their brothers. Tianling promised the tiger that he would avenge all of them, and no one else would suffer from the actions of the villains. The tiger thanked Tianling, and as he left he said that they would tell other animals about Tianling, because as it turned out, not all humans were bad. Tianling wanted to say that he was not human, but decided to refrain, as Baifeng suddenly appeared and said that it was time for them to continue searching for the elder. Because of the sudden appearance, Qinyun was startled and asked when he had time to sneak up. Tianling refused Baifeng and said that they would go to Kaiju first. The 5 schools of the Southwest had participated in the destruction of their Yuzhu school, and they would start searching for their sister once they destroyed each of those schools. Baifeng asked Tianling if he could handle it, but Tianling asked Baifeng not to doubt him. In that case, Baifeng said that he would separate from the group and go look for the elder, and he hoped that when they returned, Tianling and Qinyun would still be alive. Kaiju School is located among the mountains and forests, where there have always been many animals. But at some point, the cultivators of this school began to use the local animals for their own purposes. Tianling had never imagined that those 3 years inside consciousness would turn out to be just 3 days outside. And after all, during that time, he had reached the 7th level of the Secrets of Supreme Dangxia technique. But unfortunately, this level has become a dead end for him, and he can no longer break through further. The worst part is that he doesn't know why, knowing what Tianling was thinking. The dragon explained that it was because he still hadn't found his path. After all, cultivation is not only about perfecting techniques, but also the path of knowing the truth. Many people can't find the path and don't progress for years. Tianling asked the dragon about this way of knowing the truth. Then he said that every man has his own way. Some come to the truth through kindness, and some through murder. The Supreme Celestial who has seized power professes the path of violence. Tianling told the Dragonkin that although he had hit a wall in his development, but still he couldn't pass by the Kaiju school. Firstly, they mistreat animals. Secondly, he must find out the fate of his mentor's soul. The dragon supported Tianling's aspirations and added that thirdly, Tianling's next dragon was imprisoned there. Therefore, he issued a B-level assignment: destroy the Kaiju school, and as a reward, he would receive an Earth Dragon, an Earth Rod, and an Earth Dragon technique. Tianling said that the dragon simply left him no other choice. Meanwhile, at the Kaiju school, the master was yelling at his subordinates for not doing anything. He wanted to know why Kai Chi still hadn't returned, after all. He had sent him to search for the surviving students from Yuzhou school. But for some unknown reason, he was having fun somewhere. Kaiyu ordered that Kai Chi should be thrown into the dungeon as soon as he returned. Kaiyu was angry because the creep from the Lishu school had appropriated Wu Yan's soul. And if he didn't get at least the escaped disciples, all the glory would go to Master Li. That's why he must think of something as soon as possible. But he can't think of anything since he's too weak, so he must feed off someone else's energy. Kaiyu turned the handle of his throne, and then it began to sink underground. Kaiyu went down deep underground, where he asked the chained beast if he had rested well, for he needed his strength again. But the Earth Dragon only cursed the bastard. Meanwhile, 2 cloaked figures appeared at the entrance of Kaiju. Qinyun asked if Tianling was really ready to attack the Kaiju school right now, and if he had any plan. To which Tianling replied that he had a plan. And using the fire rod, he said that his plan was to just enter through the main gate. Qinyun was amazed at such a quick disclosure. Hearing the explosion, all the students of Kaiju gathered and ran to the entrance to punish the scoundrels who dared to attack them. Qinyun asked if Tianling had thought that so many people would end up at the Kaiju school. She tried to explain that the decision to enter through the main gate was too rash. After that, Tianling rushed towards the enemies, shouting that he didn't care how many there were because they all deserved to die. The Kaiju disciples thought Tianling was crazy for going at them alone, so they decided to make mincemeat out of him to feed their pets. Tianling used the dissecting fire and shouted that he would finish them all off and leave no one alive. Immediately after, waves of flames rushed in all directions, instantly taking the enemies' lives. As they burned in the flames, the Kaiju disciples screamed in pain and begged for help, But Tianling wasn't going to take pity on them. For burning his school, they screamed in a completely different way. He was about to approach the headmaster of the Kaizhou school and tell him, "I'm Ling Tian from the Yuzhou school. I've come for retribution." Suddenly, the wall next to Tianlin broke, and a crowd of enslaved animals ran out from behind it. Tianling waved his hand and spread healing, releasing the animals. His healing is the result of cultivating the gift of the tree dragon, through which the consciousness of animals is healed. The animals bowed to Tianlin as a token of their gratitude, and he ordered them to run away from here. Just as suddenly, Tianling heard a loud bird chirping and wondered what it was. Suddenly, he sensed danger and closed himself off with water from the air currents. He then saw one of the masters of the Kaizhou school riding a huge eagle. The master asked Tianling how he dared to invade his school. Qinyun noticed that Tianling had become a completely different person after awakening. On the one hand, he had become much stronger, but on the other hand, he was now completely ruthless to his enemies. She hoped that this quality would not destroy Tianling from within and would only benefit him. After all, he would have to lead all the beasts after all. Tianling asked why he was even surprised that someone had invaded their school. After all, the kaiju had recently invaded them themselves. He shouted that he would take revenge for all the dead students of the Yuzhou school. Master Kaizhou replied that the Yuzhou had brought the trouble on themselves. While he was one of those who wanted to punish the werewolf cub's coverers and restore justice. Dodging another attack from the enemy, Tianling asked what kind of justice he was talking about. After which, Tianling attacked the enemy with flames, shouting that he would restore his justice today. Immediately afterward, he found himself facing the enemy with catastrophic punishment in his hands. But the master easily dodged the attack and commented that it was too slow for him. Tianling abruptly turned around and attacked the master again. But the master grabbed the blade and said that he shouldn't have used the same technique against him twice. After which, the master threw Tianling away, wrenching his blade in the process. Tianling said that he didn't use exactly the same technique and waved his fingers. Immediately after, the fiery sword changed its shape, covering Master Kaizhou, and a moment later burst into flames, with an explosion throwing the wizard off the eagle's back. Tianling touched the eagle's head and used healing to make it wake up, but he failed to restore the eagle's self-awareness, and the eagle itself spiraled downward. After landing on the ground, Master Kaizhou tore off his burning clothes and shouted to Tianling that he was looking down on their school for nothing, for his spell was imprinted deep in the subcortex of the beast's mind. The master shouted that Tianling would die along with the eagles, as suddenly the eagle started to be covered in strange symbols. The eagle then self-destructed, creating a huge ball of fire in the sky. Qinyun was horrified because Tianling had died. Master Kaizhou said that this was exactly what happens to upstarts who defy the representatives of the Kaiju school. Suddenly, Qinyu appeared behind the master and asked if he was telling the truth. Immediately after, Tianling nailed him to the ground, shouting that this was what happened to those who challenged him. Tianling ordered Qinyun to follow him, after which they went to the main hall of the school. Passing by the master of the Kaizhou school, Qinyun was horrified at what had become of him. Walking towards the main tower, Tianling kicked the door of a building along the way, where he saw the children, who immediately began sobbing and begging him for mercy. Tianling asked the children if they were students of this school, to which one of them replied that they were those who had been screened out and could not enroll. Since they could not subdue the animals with a spell, they were assigned to help with the farm. Tianling told the children that he didn't need them and ordered them to run home, after which he chopped down the next door on the path, and Qinyun told the children to run away quickly. As he walked outside, Tianling saw the tower where the headmaster of the Kaiju school should probably be. Suddenly, the boy asked Tianling if he was going to go to that tower, because if he was looking for the headmaster, he wouldn't find him there. He told Tianlin that he had learned from the words of the other disciples that the headmaster was in the dungeon. Tianling explained to the boy that he was their enemy, and that by saying so they were betraying their school. He replied that he knew about it, but he wanted the school to disappear from the face of the earth. Because of the constant abuse of animals, all normal people think they're scum, because all the cultivation here is based on cruelty. Besides, he never wanted to be a part of this school. Suddenly, a dog came running to Tianlin and barked at him. The dog asked Tianlin not to offend his master, and the boy, not understanding what his dog was saying, asked why he had come. Tianling reached out his hand to the dog and said that he wouldn't hurt him. Hearing this, the dog was surprised that someone understood what he said. Tianling asked the dog why he was protecting this child after all. All the guys here were bullying animals. The boy couldn't understand what was going on, while the dog told him that, although they were being bullied, not all of them were. He said that the master and his friends were kind to them. The master took pity on him, and so he did not subdue him with a spell. The dog explained that not all people are cruel, and therefore you don't have to kill all the people in a row. Thinking back to his recent actions, Tianling pondered over the dog's words, after which he said he understood him and asked him to leave with his host. Looking at his dog, the boy wondered what his dog had just muttered. When Tianling and Qinyun reached the entrance of the dungeon, Qinyun asked if Tianling believed that boy's words. Suddenly, a painful roar came from the depths of the dungeon, and a powerful spiritual energy reverberated. Immediately after which, Tianling said that he believed and rushed into the dungeon to the dragon's rescue. Frightened by what she heard, Qinyun wondered if it was a dragon. After all, she would have to try her best to understand what he was trying to say, for the dragon was screaming in pain and begging for someone to kill it as soon as possible. Tianling realized that it was his earth dragon that was roaring. Hence he was going to save the one no matter what it cost him. Tianling turned to the dragoness and said that he needed some item. Immediately after, a dragon lying on a cloud appeared in front of him and said that this was the first time Tianling was summoning him. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Caillou continued to draw out the dragon's energy. He was glad that he had a dragon with such a huge amount of life energy in his hands, for it was literally an inexhaustible source for him. If he absorbed a little more energy, he would start to feel better than he did when he was younger. The dragon shouted that it would rather kill him and began to gather spiritual energy in its jaws. But Caillou told the dragon that he was too naive and threw the needles into the dragon's hands. After that, those sank into the dragon's skin and began to cause it great pain. Caillou explained that as long as these needles were in the dragon's body, the dragon would not be able to do anything to itself at all, which meant that all of the dragon's power would only belong to it. After being energized, Caillou said goodbye to the dragon and said that he needed to go out for some fresh air. Just as he was about to crank the knob, someone shouted that he could never leave here. Caillou asked Tianling who he was and how he ended up here, to which Tianling replied that he was the one who would kill him. As soon as Tianling was nearby, the dragon felt that this person's scent seemed very familiar. Tianling attacked Caillou, creating a multitude of fire swords. Caillou laughed since someone is trying to kill him, and asked what the person even thought of himself, after which he kicked the chair handle. Immediately, chains flew out from the ceiling, which instantly shackled Tianling. Tianling asked if Caillou was confident in thinking that these chains would be able to stop him. Seeing Tianling trying to get out, the dragon told him to keep his head down. Just as suddenly, the chains became hot and began to suck the strength out of Tianling. Caillou explained that the more you try to get out of the chains, the more they tighten. This dungeon is specifically made to draw life force from others, so resistance is futile. Besides, these spells are thousands of years old, and no one has ever been able to get out of them. He had already started to feel Tianling's incoming strength, which meant that it wouldn't be long before he would be squeezed dry. Just as suddenly, Qinyun ran into the dungeon and immediately rushed to Tianling's rescue. But in the next instant, she as well as Tianling were shackled in spell chains. After taking a closer look at Qinyun, Caillou praised her figure, but added that she didn't have much brains. He then asked if she thought that he didn't have enough chains for her. After all, no matter how many chains there were, they would all end up the same. Caillou pulled Qinyun close to him and started inhaling her fragrance, after which Qinyun shouted for him to just kill her. But he refused and explained that she misunderstood him, for he didn't really need her body. All he needs is her life force. He'd noticed that she smelled like a werewolf, and her powers were enough to extend his life for decades. Suddenly, the shadow at Caillou's feet came to life and said that it would never let him prolong his life. Immediately after, Tianling jumped out of the shadows and stabbed into Caillou's chest with his blade. While Caillou was trying to figure out how Tianling got out of his chains, Tianling asked if he thought he was the only one here who possessed spells, after which Tianling shouted that Caillou was about to spit out all the stolen power. Caillou called out to the chains, immediately after which those chains rushed towards Tianling. But this time, Tianling managed to dodge, away from all the chains. Caillou shouted to Tianling that he couldn't take refuge here and that he would capture him, to which Tianling replied that he would be tortured to grab, immediately after which the chains began to pass through him. Caillou was dumbfounded by the tricks he saw, as he suddenly realized that there was a werewolf in front of him. Tianling shouted that Caillou realized it too late and rushed towards him. Caillou said that they would still look at it, and instantly chained Tianling, after which he pulled the sword from his chest and tossed it aside. Continuing to shackle Tianling with many chains, Caillou turned around and shouted that he would need his strength again, after which he started draining the dragon's strength. Seeing this, Qinyun ordered Caillou to stop, but he wouldn't even listen to her. He said he was alive as long as that dragon was alive. Suddenly, Tianlin managed to get out of the ball of chains, immediately after which he threw fire blades at Caillou, which he was unable to dodge. After which, Tianling shouted that his dragon would not save Caillou, and impaled him with the ritual sword once again, after which Caillou finally exploded, finally dying. Just as suddenly, the dragon heard a metallic sound and immediately turned to its source. Tianling extended his hand to the dragon and asked him not to be afraid, for everything would be fine now. Well, friends, I don't know about you, but I like this manhwa. The plot itself is quite interesting and intriguing. So, if you liked the video, then subscribe to the channel and write a comment about what you liked. If new chapters of this title are released, I will definitely make a continuation. All the best. See you soon.